One.
Ho ho!
And we are on the air. Tonight I am joined with Rat Resistance or Rat.Resistance. Sorry, I've been, kind of off YouTube for a month or so, but I am back with a blom. So why don't you introduce a little of yourself to the audience, Rat.Resistance?
All right. My actual name is Nicholas. I'm from Norway, and I've also been away from YouTube for quite a while now. Actually, I've been trying to stream a little bit on Twitch. Until recently, I described myself as a social democrat, but I took an 8 values test that isn't really compatible with that label anymore. Nowadays, I call myself a syndicalist. I've been radicalized, I guess. I love to read about religion and culture. Currently, I'm reading Das Kapital, and I'm also going to start reading Revolution Betrayed by Leon Trotsky because, you got to read all of the communists. My channel is, I don't know. I guess the latest couple videos are mainly focused on religion and religious topics, whereas the earlier videos are more political in nature.
So, what specifically interests you about religion?
I'm very interested in why people are religious. To me, I grew up an atheist, and so religion has always been kind of foreign to me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm interested in something that almost seems absurd to me, how that can be so intrinsic to all of the cultures that we know from history. Like we don't know of a single culture that wasn't religious in some way. How so many people can be convinced by something I really can't.
I suppose that is a very interesting, perspective to look at religion from, I guess, from a very, very secular, very atheistic perspective, because, especially in countries in Europe, and especially in Western Europe, more and more people are atheists and are very secular. So it is kind of a disconnect from much of the rest of the world, which is very much influenced by their religion, even in countries which maybe superficially have more in common with Europe, like America. That's a very religious country.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We have something called the secularization theory. And it basically goes that the more industrial a country becomes, the more secular we believe that it will become. Now, the United States is what we call the American exception, whereas, it's founded on secular ideals, but the country in and of itself has a very strong Christian tradition.
Yeah, and a very particular kind of Christianity too, very Protestant, very fundamentalist.
Yeah, so and that has something to do, I think, with the history of the country as well, with the startup of America. Basically, you have the Puritans that were very anti-Catholic, and so now in the more modern day we see religious groups such as the Mormon Church of Mormons, Latter-day Saints, and Pentecostal movements. They are rapidly growing in numbers. There's no. So the religion that is growing the fastest is Islam. We know that.
Yeah.
But the religious group that is growing the fastest is the Pentecostal movement, and it is crushing the numbers of Islam. So that in itself, I think, is very interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what people find so appealing about Pentecostalism.
Yeah, so Pentecostalism is growing, for the most part, very rapidly in South America. It's basically vampirizing the Catholic Church there. So
Yeah,
so
I can see why people would find, the Catholic Church unappealing. I mean,
yeah, I have my complaints about the Catholic Church.
they're basically like a pedophile theocracy.
Indeed, that is not just basically, that is exactly what they are. So even though like Pope Francis, he seems like an okay guy, like he's better than the last one.
Yeah. The last
But
one was just terrible.
yeah, but then again, like that, being better than him doesn't really, that's not setting the bar too high.
Yeah.
And that's my thoughts about Francis. He seems like a normal liberal man with some good values, but he is still a theocrat. Let's never forget that.
Well, I think like characters like Pope Francis are just kind of the perfect example of how having good individuals or like nominating better people to positions of power doesn't necessarily fix the problem with a hierarchy or a group. Because, Pope Francis may be, better than the last one. But at the same time, the Catholic Church is still, as corrupt, as pedophilic, and, as malevolent as it ever was.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some of the reasons I find. I also find religious, like history of religion, to be super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, how in earlier societies, you don't really have any separation of the religion and the culture. They are both very intrinsic. If you look at Mesopotamia or Egypt, the state religion there is like so intrinsically important to the culture.
Yeah, like the king is in some ways seen as a god or as a servant of the gods at the very least.
And you can see that with like Japan in more modern times as well. But then you get to the Roman Empire, and that's where the sort of divide between culture and religion starts to show itself.
Yeah, give Caesar unto what is Caesar. It's and all that.
Yeah, and the Roman Empire, it's mostly because it was huge, and they tried to incorporate all of these different cultures, and so the state religion wasn't able to incorporate all of these cultural smaller religions into itself. And so they had like the state religion that was like the legal religion kind of sort of, and then you have like a bunch of small mystery cults and stuff like that. So
like the cult of Isis.
Cult of Isis is interesting, not to be confused with ISIS, but which is also a cult. But yeah, Christianity also started out as one of the mystery cults. It was called the Jesus cult, which I think is an incredibly funny name.
The Jesus cult.
It sounds like something South Park could have made up.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a few like culty variants of Christianity throughout history, like the Jamestown cult.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like these aspects of religion. I find them interesting, I should say. I find it interesting that from the very first humans that we know about all the way up to today, religion has always been there for some reason. And, some people are somewhat reductionistic, is that the word? When it comes to these things, where they are like, well, it's just people trying to explain things that they don't know how to explain. I can see that, but on the other side, when Christians attend mass, or when atheists go to a concert, for example, or stuff like that, we do get this feeling that we are like a part of something bigger. And I think that's where religion draws its power from.
I think you are definitely onto something there. And furthermore, I kind of venture like a hypothesis as to why, one reason religion is declining, and two, why, we're kind of seeing like a mental health crisis in the West. I think it has something to do with the breakdown of community. Instead of attending all of these kind of communal events, nowadays people can be very atomized, I guess would be the word to describe it.
Yeah.
Very broken down into small individuals that go about their day-to-day lives, and their only way of connecting to the outer world can be the internet, right? You know.
So the Western world, which isn't really something that exists, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
People know what we mean ish when we talk about the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
And the Western world is interesting in the way that, okay, let's say we are more industrialized,
Mm-hmm.
and we are to some extent more secular. Now, these things, when we are more industrialized, and now we get into like the Marxian theory of religion.
Mm-hmm.
When people think about Marx and what he said about religion, they think about the opium for the people.
Yeah.
Now, people read that statement in an incorrect fashion, because when people read that and with our modern eyes, they read it and they think, oh, he meant that it was dumbing down people.
Mm-hmm.
But he was talking about how religion is actually kind of a painkiller.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what opium was back then.
Yeah. And so we see studies that are talking about how religious people are more happy on like a general scale, that they are more happy with their lives and more happy with aspects of their lives that people that are no longer religious or are born atheists sort of aren't too happy with. Now, I believe that if you look at this on a global scale, you look at people from like the third world, and they have enough shit to struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
that they don't really have the time to stop up and think, oh, I'm depressed and this is why. So they kind of, like, I know that this is sort of a glib point, but they kind of don't have time to be depressed anyway. Whereas we, in the more industrial part of the world, we have so much easygoings for us that we have sort of we have a larger ability to focus on social problems, social meaning in our day-to-day lives, not in a like socio-political way, and I think that has something to do with it.
Well, it's an interesting hypothesis, although like obviously there is still like lots of suicide and mental health crises.
Oh, yeah.
All over the world. I mean, look at the the workers jumping out of the factories in Foxconn in China, or farmers in India who are committing suicide because they can't compete with these giant multinationals that are buying up all the land and polluting it with pesticides and all sorts of things.
Definitely. So I'm not saying that depression and stuff like that is something inherent to the West or inherent to the industrialized world, but I think that's part of why we see that a lot of people in Western countries are struggling with depression. Now, with that said, first of all, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
Second of all, depression is, it's a huge topic, and it can have to do with any part of your life. So my roommate, I think he is focusing on the fact that I'm using the term the West quite a lot, because we know that it's not an actual academic term. So,
yeah.
But yeah, where was I?
It's difficult when we try to talk about the world, because so much of how we talk about the world, race, the West, etc.
Yeah.
We know that they are in part constructs, but they're still constructs that have power, right? They still have meaning for lots of people. And so, on one level, they're fake, they don't exist. But on another level, in the level of ideology and the level of people's, imagination, which they impart onto the world, yeah, they are very real.
Yeah. So he's telling me that I'm dog whistling right now since I'm using the West so much, but yeah. No, yeah. So it's like the Middle East, for example, is actually also an interesting concept for that, because the Middle East is referring to, in between the West and the Orient.
Yeah.
Whereas the Middle East is actually not an academic term right now. And I have like some professors that are like, some people say Middle East, but we don't use that term here. We use Southwest Asia. But it's something about, the more people know to some extent what we talk about when we talk about the West, when we talk about the Middle East, stuff like that. So it's just for simplicity's sake, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's always that difficulty when, talking about issues. You have to decide between picking on one hand, where was I? Oh, on one hand, using, the language that everyday people use and that every people can connect with, and then using the technically more accurate, but also more confusing for the uninitiated academic language. And it's a tricky choice, because on one hand, you risk losing the precision that you would get if you use the academic language. But on the other hand, you create kind of an alien world for people who are not initiated into the academic circles that know all of the lingo, that are aware of all of this stuff, and you risk alienating them. So
yeah, and the problem with that alienation is the fact that sort of anti-intellectualism is very much on the rise, especially on platforms like YouTube, where the far right is gaining ground, and these people, they hate academia. And I think it's mostly because academics are mostly leftists, and so that can help them with stuff like the JQ and shit like that. So like it can help the right sort of try to push like the JQ or like the cultural Marxism kind of thing, shit like that, and it ought to be dealt with.
Well, and also I think that anti-intellectualism is kind of the easiest sort of anti-establishment thing that you can get, because you're not really challenging any power. Like academia, exists, but I don't think it has really much power over society in the same way that, the state, the massive corporations do. So it's a pretty easy way to paint yourself as, anti-establishment without actually having to risk anything. Aside from not getting invited to like a university, who cares?
Yeah. So very quickly, I'm looking at the stream on YouTube.
Yeah.
So wait. So I guess I'm Caligula.
Oh no, I just randomly titled it that because I was trying to make a pun with catching up with the Kardashians.
Oh.
And right. My mind was drawing a blank, so I'd be like, okay, I kind of like, playing with decadence imagery. Caligula, that's a decadent figure. There it is.
Oh yeah, he was such a weird emperor.
Yeah, I mean, making your horse a senator. I think in part that was to like show like, oh, you senators, I have such contempt for you that even my horse is worthy of your station.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like, I'm not sure I would give Caligula that much credit, seeing as I think my favorite story about him is actually not the horse story. It's when he charged into a battlefield with a bunch of his soldiers, and they couldn't find an enemy, so he just dressed up some of his own soldiers so that they would look like the enemy soldiers. Just so that he can come home and say like, hey, we won.
Well, one of my favorite Caligula stories is when he was angry that his fleet had been sunk in the British Channel. So he decided to declare war on Neptune, so the god of the sea. So he had his soldiers toss weapons into the ocean and flagged the ocean with whips. And then he went home and had himself a Roman triumph to celebrate his conquest of the sea.
So here's the thing: people like Emperor Nero and Caligula, they are in and of themselves arguments against monarchies, I feel, and arguments against power being. So I'm not totally sold on the idea of a republic, but I think it's better that, like, I like democracy. Like, I would like direct democracy. I think Switzerland is doing quite great for itself. But yeah. Sargon?
Sargon had this thing where he said, "Oh, fucking hell, can't you summarize your arguments in under 5 minutes?"
Ugh. Yeah. Sargon's horrible. Did you see the debate he did with Vosh?
No, I haven't. I have to admit that Vosh is not really one of the YouTubers I follow.
Oh.
I mean, I don't subscribe to him, and I hear like these whispers of bad behavior. Like there was this one where he was like apparently like sexually harassing someone. I don't know.
He has addressed that.
Oh.
So yeah. No, I follow him. I love his content. He is one of the people that has dragged me even further to the left than I was. So I think he's very much a force for good. I would recommend checking him out. Like the sexual harassment kind of thing, he has addressed it and he has talked about that.
Yeah, pretty much like my only interaction with him is that like there was this weird like meltdown argument he had with Thought Slime like a few months ago, and it was very odd. Like he was yelling at everyone was yelling at him. I don't know. These sorts of Twitter spats I think are mainly unproductive for the left.
Yeah. On the other hand, like I said, he a lot of his arguments have resonated enough with me to push me from a more moderate left over to being like a full-fledged leftist. Even though, you know, I can feel people like MC and Mad Dodge having an aneurysm right now because they thought I was quite far left already.
Oh yeah. Do you remember that person who was I can't remember. That was talking about how they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Oh yeah, that's Mad Dodge. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. It's mostly because I haven't really done YouTube or streams in forever. So I don't have anything, like, on a personal level, I don't have anything bad to say about Mad Dodge. He is a nice person and all that stuff. His politics are quite horrendous, as we discovered that time, and I knew before, and as I really discovered in my Norway versus the United States debate I had with him.
Was he like, oh, you know, socialist Norway is collapsing?
I remember he was like, I was getting into that debate with like stats and stuff like that. I came so well prepared for that one. I'm proud of myself for that. Like, I asked my friends, give me some stats for so and so, and my introductory, like my opening speech, was basically me talking about like how Norway is like the happiest country on earth, how we have a lower poverty rate, stuff like that. And his opening speech was basically just posturing about how America is like the shining city on a hill, like Reaganite stuff. And some of my friends had tuned in and they managed to sit through like half of his opening speech before they were like, yeah, you know what, I'm not watching this. So
I always find it funny when like Americans actually believe that everyone else thinks they're the greatest country in the world. Like it's bad enough that they do, but they also expect everyone else to think it too.
Yeah, but I'm like, I love it when they're like, we're the best country on earth, and I'm like, in what sense? Because you are provably like one of the worst ones when it comes to healthcare, especially in, you know, the West. you are horrible. You have like guns, so many like massacres every now and then. You have
like this is
more,
like mass shootings have just become like a regular thing. Where
Yeah.
school shootings have become a regular thing, and like no one does anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, there's like they are the greatest on having the biggest military, and they don't even have the most nukes. I think actually Russia have more nukes than they have, but they have like the biggest, baddest nukes.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, nuclear stockpiles are such a waste of time. Like, you only need like 5 nuclear weapons if you want to destroy the world at this point in technology.
Yeah.
And like, I can kind of understand the argument of, okay, maybe we need nuclear weapons as like kind of an international thing, like just in case there was some sort of asteroid, I don't know, or some sort of extraterrestrial threat. Maybe it would be handy to have a few nuclear missiles on hand. But as for the world needing nuclear missiles,
no,
I don't really agree. I think like we could move towards denuclearization, honestly.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it is ironic for me being like Norway ended up voting no in the UN, I think, for denuclearization, and I'm like, well, to be fair, we don't have nukes, so our vote is somewhat inconsequential for that. The important ones would be the ones that actually have them.
Yeah, like China.
Yeah, North Korea. Yeah, they have one. So
maybe, I don't know.
I can understand why North Korea wants to keep their nukes, though. Like, seeing as what happened with Libya, and the fact that Bolton came out and were like, yeah, we're actually going to go with the Libyan model for this. And I'm like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, aren't you? Oh, demonetized.
Yeah, thankfully this is a small channel, so we don't have to worry about demonetization. I have all my videos demonetized anyway.
Oh.
So, because, you know, first of all, I'd make like 2 cents from any of my YouTube videos. Yeah. And second of all, like, I just don't feel the need to like run ads, and I have no control over the ads that are running on my videos. So what if it's like some PragerU or Trump nonsense?
Oh,
like, I don't want to be advertising that.
Fucking PragerU.
I feel like with having it demonetized, I have more control over my channel and my content, and you know, people can afford to be a bit more edgy on my streams, and I don't mind that.
Although a PragerU ad before one of your videos would be the funniest thing on the internet.
Can you imagine Dennis Prager moaning on about the war on Christmas or something?
We actually have that concept here. And it's,
really?
Yeah, and it's the dumbest shit, because so it's not happening. Like, okay, some background. We have in our government today we have one conservative party, one liberal party, one Christian party, and one fascist party.
Yeah, the fascist party, what are they called again? Like,
they are called the Progress Party.
Oh yeah, so, which is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah, so they are fascists. There's like no doubt about that. And they are trying to push this whole, because we don't even call it Christmas. We call it Jul, which is an Old Norse term, or derived from an Old Norse term. And they're like, oh, it's this war on this holiday because on these and these schools, people weren't allowed to say Merry Christmas to each other, or they weren't allowed to mention Christmas or sing Christmas songs. Now it turns out, and of course underlying argument is it's the Muslims' fault.
Of course, it's always the Muslims' fault.
Yeah. Now it turns out it only happened once. It only was one single instance where people were like, hey, maybe we shouldn't push this holiday on people not celebrating the holiday. And it was Jehovah's Witnesses. It wasn't even the Muslims.
Yeah, because Jehovah's Witnesses are like the biggest sticks in the mud sect of Christianity. They're like, no, we don't celebrate Christmas. You know, it just desecrates the holy Jehovah. They don't even call him God; they call him Jehovah.
Yeah, which is funny because now I'm getting back into my nerdiness on religion, but that, I studied this. So Jehovah is an abbreviation, or not an abbreviation. That's not the right word, I think. Okay, so Yahweh is the name of God for the Jews call him Yahweh.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that in the original Hebrew texts, it's written with with no vocals or no vowels, and so it's basically like, humans cannot put their eyes on the actual word because then our eyes would burn out of our sockets. So they have basically just been putting in vowels where they feel like they fit.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to Yahweh and Jehovah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Section?
No, yeah, I'm looking at my conversation with my roommate, and he's like, the school that did the whole War on Christmas kind of thing. He actually went to school in the in the proximate area, and he is mentioning to me that the entire village there are full of racists. So,
okay.
The more you know.
All of the village?
I would guess. He hasn't said anything more, but he is saying that the entire village is mega racist.
Wow.
So
mark that down on, if I ever come to Norway, which I maybe sometime. It seems like an interesting place to visit. Most of the places in Scandinavia I want to visit.
Yeah, come to Bergen and I'll show you around.
Mm-hmm. But I will mark down racist Christmas banning village as a place not to go to.
Yes. Wait, I'll. There you go. That's how you spell the name of the place. I wrote it in the private chat for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, did you hear about all these new weird laws that are coming out of Denmark?
No.
Well, I mean, in regards to immigrants, like they have this new designated ghetto areas, which are over 50% immigrant. And in these areas, you can if you commit a crime, you face harsher consequences or possibly deportation. And then, the children of the immigrants in Denmark have to learn, Danish cultural values. They have to celebrate Christmas, etc., that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, seeing as I think they just got a new government elected, actually.
Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't been following Danish politics completely accurately, but
so they had an election this year, I think, where they elected a social democrat government.
Yeah,
but because social democrat with a little bit of racism in it.
Yeah, the Labour Party in Denmark is a bit on the anti-immigrant, they're going to steal the jobs side of the spectrum.
And I think it's because the Social Democrat, the Labour Party of Denmark, I think they realized that sort of right-wing extremism is growing up all around Europe right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been like, hey, if we just front this one policy that they would like, then we can enact the rest of our good policies. Now, to me, that sounds like a liberal argument, but as long as you know what, fuck that shit. I don't like racism.
Yeah. Well, even more, like you said, that sounds like a liberal argument. That is exactly a liberal argument. Like Hillary Clinton literally made the argument that, the reason fascism is rising in Europe is because there's too much immigration and they need to lower the immigration.
Yeah. So Hillary Clinton is an idiot. We all know that. She managed to lose to Trump, which would be an impossible task for anyone else. Mm-hmm. Even though anyone else except for Biden in 2020, I think he would lose in a spectacular fashion.
Well, he's such a he seems first of all, he seems senile. And
Oh
Trump's
yeah,
already kind of senile, but Biden somehow manages to be even more senile.
yeah. He is demented, I think.
Yeah.
And at this point, I've been saying it before. The people running his campaign are committing elder abuse at this point.
Yeah, the
It's
DNC elder abuse meme. I love it.
so it's horrible.
Mhm.
Hey-oh.
That's like one of the many bad things about Biden. Then there's like his terrible record, like
Oh
just
yeah,
awful, like supporting segregation, being anti-abortion, and especially being pro-corporate, like all the way. Like his bill, like one of his signature bills that he got passed through, I'm sorry, not Parliament, Congress, was the 1994 crime bill, which
oh yeah,
completely, you know, it devastated the, African American community, the Latino community, got so many people thrown in jail for basically no reason, just so the Democrats could triangulize a bit and look
yeah.
tough on crime. And then there was another bill that he passed, which decimated protections for bankers from bankruptcy for homeowners in 2007, just in time for the financial crash. And so that made it impossible for people to get any, for thousands of families that lost their home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Biden,
no.
terrible.
Biden would be, I think he would actually be the worst candidate to stand up against Trump right now. Now, I believe that Bernie Sanders would be the best choice.
Yeah.
And my second favorite is Tulsi Gabbard. Now, a lot of people on the left don't like her, but I appreciate her.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's some things I do like about her. Like, yeah, she is probably one of the most vocal anti-war candidates out there, which, yeah, I appreciate that. It is kind of a pivot from her past record where she was more like, yeah, the Russians are doing good and by being like really pro. Yeah, there was some weird stuff in 2015 where she's like, why doesn't Obama use radical Islamic terrorism? Why doesn't he use that language? And then there was a bit where she was like, we should thank the Russians for bombing Al-Qaeda. We're giving Al-Qaeda arms. The Russians are bombing Al-Qaeda. We should be doing more of that. I don't really agree with that.
So Tulsi is like none of them are perfect.
Yeah, obviously.
And I think
hard.
Yeah, and I think Bernie Sanders, for example, he is not as good on the anti-war thing as Tulsi Gabbard is. However, he is better on healthcare and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, Tulsi Gabbard has a bit of a past with being somewhat anti-LGBT, which she has apologized for, and she has a near perfect record when it comes, like voting record when it comes to LGBT rights.
Yeah,
so
that's why I bring up the LGBT stuff, since I think I blame more her like creepy cultist dad.
Yeah, so her upbringing is probably, but she has been very honest about the fact that she had a shift with that.
Unlike, people like Biden and Hillary Clinton are like, no, I was always pro-gay marriage. Like, ignore history. Like, I don't understand why people just can't admit that they were wrong about gay marriage. They have a new opinion now, and they've changed, and they're going to earnestly work to be better on LGBT issues. Like, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with people changing their mind. I want more people to change their mind on LGBT issues.
Oh yeah.
What I have a problem with is like the dishonesty of saying, like, no, I was always pro LGBT. There is no war at Bossing Say.
I love it when Hillary is like, I was always one of the most LGBT friendly, and I'm like, you didn't support gay marriage until like, I don't know, 2013 or something like that.
Didn't she vote for DOMA?
Like, she was literally one of the last people to come out in support of same-sex marriage. And to me, that's like, hey, strike one, you're out. It's fine if she didn't hold that opinion in the past, but now she does. Whatever. The more support it has, the better it is. But lying about that record, it doesn't exactly make it so that I believe her.
Yeah. It creates like kind of this. Oh, is your roommate on the stream too? Does he want to show his beautiful face?
No, I think he's No, he's limping away.
Oh.
Yeah, but he says hi.
Oh, I'll say hi back in Norwegian.
Oh yeah, that would be hi. It's not that different. Or hello, which, again, not that different.
What's no in Norwegian?
Nei.
Nei.
Yeah. So
just
like German, except not the last M.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
He's I don't know if you caught that, but he's saying that he has a powerful, majestic stride and he is not limping anywhere. Great.
Majestic stride.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, okay, anyway, back to like Tulsi Gabbard. I don't criticize her for like the LGBT stuff. I believe like her change of heart on that.
Yeah.
I generally accept people if they admit that they've changed their mind and don't like try to obfuscate like Hillary Clinton. No, my problem is more like the more recent stuff. Like in 2014 to 2015, she seemed to be like one of the more conservative Democrats when it came to like, she had kind of this weird, like, do you remember how back in like 2013, Fox News had this really weird attitude towards Putin where they're like, Putin is good. We need a strong leader like Putin, as opposed to this weak pussy like Obama. And which is kind of funny because if Obama was like Putin, he would have had Fox News locked up.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what they were going for there. But anyway, she was.
Yeah, no, so she did, however, resign her DNC post so that she could endorse Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I'm like, she's not as good as Bernie, but she is, because she is a bit of a mixed bag, but her good parts outshine the majority of the field. Like I like her way more than I like Elizabeth Warren, for example.
Yeah, with Elizabeth Warren, I like some things. Like she seems to be generally good on, social issues. But when it comes to the more economic stuff, weirdly enough, she seems to have moved towards triangulation, which is not how she started out her campaign.
No, because
odd. But around like October, she started to say, well, I won't do Medicare for all immediately. I'll do it in the third year of my term,
Yeah. She wanted to do a public option first.
And then when she was asked, like, what will you do to help Black children who are struggling in schools? She's like, well, I'll spend more money on housing. There was a lot of like this weird sort of like, you don't really seem like you have a lot of ideas on some of these issues, which is weird for a candidate who bases her campaign around, I have a plan for that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Although I have to say, I think Biden's answer to the whole, what was it? They gotta hear words.
Turn on the record players. Make sure the kids hear words.
I'm like, this guy can't really be more of a disaster than he is. Like, did you see the new leakings from the corn pop video?
Oh no, I haven't.
Oh, it was so creepy. He was talking about how children came up with,
and he loved to have kids.
Yeah, and the children were touching his leg, and I'm like, Biden, please, just for the love of everything holy, stop talking. Like, please, just drop out. It's for your own good, man.
Mm-hmm. Some random geek says, reduce rent by 10% over 10 years. When my rent went up by 10% in one, Warren's plans don't help too much. I agree completely. Like, that was another example of Warren just, at least, diagnosing an issue. Like, yes, rent is way too high in America, especially in big cities, and more needs to be done to make rent go down. But her terrible idea was, well, in 10 years, I will reduce the rent by 10%. Oh, thank you so much, Warren. Meanwhile, the rent grows by 50%. What we end up was a net increase of 40%. Thank you so much. That's a useless liberal solution. What you really should be pushing for is stuff like rent control, more public housing, stuff that can really make a difference to these urban communities.
Kick out the landlords.
Oh, yeah. Landlord genocide.
Eat the rich and kill them in Minecraft. That's, no, yeah, I think that Elizabeth Warren is a neoliberal posing as a progressive. She has done decent stuff before, like the what's it called? The someone in chat might be able to help me out with this one. The Protection Financial something Bureau.
Yeah, weren't they the ones that were working on like strengthening Dodd-Frank?
I think so. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, something like that.
Consumer Financial Protection Agency.
I think it's something. I can't remember the name. If someone again in the chat wants to bring it up, then great. But yeah, so that one was quite decent, I think. I know that people like Cal Kalinske likes to talk about that one because he actually benefited from it. Like a bunch of like thousands, if not millions, of defrauded Americans that have gotten money back because of that specific agency, bureau, something like that.
And it's stuff like that makes me have like maybe second thoughts that she's, being completely a fraud. But I definitely say she's a bit too moderate. You know what I mean? She was very much 2013's progressive.
Yeah,
progressive.
Yeah, and I also think she would fare fairly bad. She has had some gaffes with like the Native American stuff.
And the Democrats already did pretty badly among the Native community in the 2016 election. I looked into it, and it was surprisingly close. Like, it was the only one where Trump actually kind of had a shot of winning. It wasn't white people.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't really know why that is. It could be because, the Native communities are predominantly rural, and maybe they see Republican policies on gun control and what have you as benefiting them.
It's because they own all the casinos.
I have no idea. Or it could also be that there's a bunch of people who are designating themselves as Native that are actually more on the white side in America. That could be another explanation,
Are you telling me that there might be more Elizabeth Warrens out there?
Yeah, but anyway, all it made me think is like the last thing the Democrats need to do is like drive a wedge in, a part of their coalition. And Elizabeth Warren's like weird geneticist argument where she's like, well, actually, Trump, like, here, I took a blood test. I'm actually 1/16 Native American, so you can't actually say that I'm not Native American. Like, the blood quantum stuff is it has such a toxic legacy. And it's so stupid. Like, she's obviously not. And then you look back at how she was like deemed the first woman of color to graduate from Harvard Law. I'm like, it's just
she's like the whitest person that has ever walked the planet. It's like, it's horrible optics. And that's why I'm saying that I don't think she would do, like, she also has like zero black support. So it's like for a Democrat, that's horrible. That's absolutely atrocious.
Although at least it's a bit better than Pete Buttigieg, who's completely nothing.
Okay. So Pete Buttigieg is like one of the favorites in the Norwegian press, because the Norwegian press is terrible, and I'll explain to you how the Norwegian press works in this regard. If a movie comes out, if a Hollywood movie is made, and there's one Norwegian actor in this movie, and he doesn't have to have like a big role, he can have like maybe one line, that would be all. They will then refer to this as a Norwegian movie. And then when this movie wins an Oscar, they will be like, oh, Norway movie, it's looking like it's going to win an Oscar. They did that with The Martian. That's why they love Pete Buttigieg, because he can speak like a little bit of Norwegian. So they are like, oh, he's our favorite now. It's terrible. It's absolutely
Oh my
horrible.
goodness. At first, I thought they were going to be like superficial neoliberals, where they're like, "Oh my goodness, he's gay, so that's why we have to support him. He's gay."
No, it's an even worse reason.
Yeah, exactly. You somehow managed to find a reason that's even worse than that.
Yeah. So they have done like puff pieces of him where they're like, Norway friend Pete Buttigieg might be doing well in the primaries, and I'm like,
Norway friend.
fucking hell. Like, to be fair, to like his credit, he knows like an obscene amount of languages. So it's always good to know more languages if you're trying to represent the free world. Always great. However, I don't think that's good enough. Like, the policies have to be in place, and he's a neoliberal. Like,
it's sad. When he started out in the race, I was thinking, okay, I like some of the things that he's saying. Like, I like it when he was going off on the Electoral College. Like, yeah, that's a shitty institution in America that needs to go. He seemed like he was saying some of the right stuff. But I think, like, in order to kind of stand out in the crowd, he took to kind of being like really, really like he took to adopting a more right-wing approach on healthcare. He's like, oh, Medicare for all, I hate it. Warren, what's your plan? You want to tax middle-class people to fund your healthcare bill, that sort of stuff. And and then you look into his deeply racist record as mayor of South Bend, where he was basically the gentrifier in chief.
So John Brockman is saying that he is LGBT CIA.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I like that one.
Yeah, that's good.
No, do you think, because I think it's interesting that he is, as neoliberal as his campaign has been, he hasn't really been pushing the identity politics.
You mean about him being gay?
Yeah. Do you think that he would do better or worse in the primary if he was pushing it?
Well, I think in part he would do worse because his support is actually among like older white voters that really respond to his stuff on Christianity. Like, he is by far the most overtly religious.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Yeah, it is a bit odd. If he's married to a man, and you think that would be an issue for the older Democrats, but they seem to appreciate, like, as long as someone talks about Bible, people are ready there to vote for them. And they also like that he was in the military. Actually, that seems to be the identity that he pushes the most, is his past.
Which is weird, because they grant that to him, but when Tulsi Gabbard comes on, she's a Russian asset.
Yeah, well, that's because she has, like, it's a very like superficial sort of thing. They're all pro-troop as long as the troops are pushing for an aggressive foreign policy.
Yeah,
that will get more troops killed, ironically enough. But if someone pushes a non-aggressive foreign policy, that's a bit more pragmatic, a bit more, hey, maybe we shouldn't be bombing everyone. No, all of a sudden, you're a traitor to a country. You have to be an asset. You have to be, a double agent. You have to be, your loyalty to your country is somehow called into question.
Yeah, and I find that interesting.
John Brockman, what? Impossible. I met a black day on Thursday wearing a Pete 2020 shirt. You know what? That reminds me of that bit when there was a bunch of these white Trump supporters wearing a Blacks for Trump shirt.
Yeah. So do you think that if he somehow were to win the election, now I don't think he will get through the primaries. I think he will be probably dropping out around Super Tuesday, but we'll see. But if he were somehow to be elected, do you think he would still go by Mayor Pete? Or do you think that they would find a way to change that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it would be kind of charming to have like a president that goes by mayor, but
as opposed to what, Your Excellency?
Your Majesty.
That apparently is the official title of the president. You're supposed to address them as Your Excellency.
Seriously?
I've never seen anyone do it, but
no, I remember I watched the it's a miniseries on what's his name? He was the second president. That's John Adams. Jesus. John Adams, and he was apparently, according to this HBO show, so this might be completely wrong, but I think he might have been one of the people that were pushing for like one of those grand titles for the president. Whereas I'm like, hey, what about just, Mr. President or Mrs. President? That would be sufficient, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because I think in France, it's Your Excellency, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But Your Excellency, I always see that as more of a religious kind of thing where you talk to bishops and stuff like that.
Yeah, Your Excellency for the bishop, and then, Your Holiness for the Pope or the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, fucking Dalai Lama. There you have a cool figure. What do you think about I'm going to assume that you saw the controversy around him where he was like, hey, if I'm going to be born as a woman, I would be born as a hot one. I would like to be born as a pretty one. I think it was something like that.
I think most women want to be pretty. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't bother with makeup or plastic surgery or what have you.
Yeah, so that's one of the things, because a lot of people reacted very poorly to that. They were like, oh, it's sexist and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, he's a goofy old man. And he's just saying that he would like to look good if he were to be born as a woman in his next life. I don't know. I would really want to see like a trans Dalai Lama, though. That would be great.
Trans Dalai Lama. Yeah, because apparently the Dalai Lama, I thought he'd said that this was going to be his last reincarnation, that he decided that he was going to ascend after this.
So, so there's parts of why China has done to Tibet what they are doing is that they want to own this area so that when the next Dalai Lama gets born, they can basically apprehend the figure before anything happens.
Yeah, I heard that like the Dalai Lama was, he said he wasn't going to ascend, but the Chinese government said, well, we're going to pick a Dalai Lama, whether you like it or not.
And so, like, to me, it doesn't, like, again, atheist, I don't really believe in reincarnation anyway, but I don't know. As for a theocratic leader, they could have done worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see that, like, the alt-right is trying to push the Dalai Lama as one of their, like, new head figures, because he said something about when the refugees' home countries are safe, they should go back. And I'm like, well, no one is disputing that, really.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like a false point. The thing is that the far right doesn't want to take in any refugees at all. Like,
which is weird, because they're very much in favor of the wars that are, making people out to be refugees.
Mm-hmm. It's a very strange dynamic. Like, they generate their own problems by not doing anything about climate change and causing all these wars abroad. They create refugees, and then when these and they hate refugees with like a burning passion, like the thing they hate the most in the world. And so, like, when the refugees come, they get upset. Why are all these refugees coming? Who could have foreseen this? No, you caused your own problem. Stop causing your own problems, and you'll stop receiving refugees if you really don't like them so much.
Yeah. One of the things, this is completely unrelated to both the Dalai Lama and the refugee crisis and stuff like that, but one of the things that I think is hilarious, by the way, can you hear my the machine in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it super loud, or?
It's kind of like, when you hearing an airplane take off in the distance.
All right, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, if people in the stream, let me know if it bothers you, and we can have it turned off.
Yeah. So yeah. What was I saying? What I think is interesting now is that libertarians and people on the right in general, the alt-right to some extent, sort of like proto-fascists and stuff like that, they are using Orwell as one of their like figures. And I'm like, you guys know that he was a socialist, right?
Yeah, I mean, he literally went to Spain to shoot fascists.
Yeah. Like, yeah, he was very much anti-Stalinist, but
Yeah.
he was a socialist. He
I
was a
mean,
democratic
he was
socialist.
very anti-Stalinist in part due to his experiences in Catalonia. Like the Stalinist segment of the Spanish left, like straight up betrayed his little
Yeah.
segment.
Hitchens actually did a great talk on that a couple of years ago before he died. Um,
Yeah.
and Christopher Hitchens, there you have a man that I have so much respect for, and I'm so sad that he was so almost neocon at the end of his days. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude,
I think he
why?
kind of degenerated in terms of his politics. I mean, in some respect, I appreciate the journalism that he did exposing, corruption in religious institutions, what have you. But on the
Yeah,
other hand, yeah, like supporting the Iraq and Afghan war, really? Really?
yeah. So I didn't like the fact that he pushed for the war in Iraq. I thought that was. I think it's weird that a more or less Marxist figure was going to go that route, and he fucking hated Kissinger,
Yeah.
so I don't understand why he chose to take their side on the issues. But on the other hand, he did a great job on Mother Teresa, which she was a fucking witch, and somehow she is a saint.
Well, he kind of exposed, the cruelties of Mother Teresa
Yeah,
and the unsavory aspects of her character when the press had just been giving, applause for all her work. But in reality, there was, a deeply troubled woman who fetishized poverty.
yeah,
And unfortunately, that is kind of the problem with kind of these more like right wing religious elements towards getting, to helping the poor. They help the poor because, in some aspect, they want the poor to live, but they don't want the poor to change in condition because they see poverty as something kind of noble and beautiful. And it's not. It's horrible. And,
yeah,
no one should have to be poor.
exactly. So yeah, no, I just I don't have much respect for her as a person in the way that she like her homes were horrible. There are clips of it, and it's like, wow, you guys are really not. You guys aren't really helping these people. Um, and to some extent, the fault of that is on the church. Uh, the church itself didn't really do anything to help. Jesus himself walked barefoot. All right, cool. Um,
I like how you're like, is that a Discord you're on or something on the other end? Or
oh no, it's on my messenger.
oh, I see.
Yeah. So my roommate wrote that Jesus himself walked barefoot, and he wrote barefoot Bear. Isn't that wrong? Like, wouldn't that be the animal? Anyway. Um,
Yeah, I have
very
no
tough.
idea what she's going on with.
Let's see. No. How long have we been? Oh,
About an hour.
oh really? Huh.
Yeah, time
Time flies
flies.
when you're having fun with your friends.
Exactly. I always like. I miss talking to you. Like we had that one chat and it was really good, and then we just never really kind of followed it up.
Yeah. So I looked through my YouTube channel the other day, and I decided to delete some of the videos I had there, and I decided to keep up some of them, mainly because I am going to make a new video where I basically um, um, disavow, is that the word? Some of the videos I've made before, because
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, because I was looking at them, and I was like, huh, the points I was making in some of these videos were somewhat patchy, weren't they? And it was very obvious when I started my channel that I was looking a lot, that I was watching a lot of Sargon.
Yeah, I remember you being like very much into like the kind of Kekistan stuff when we first talked. And I was, I pretty much have the same politics I did the first time we talked. So
yeah,
nothing
well,
really has changed for me.
Some of us just needs more time to get to a productive point, I guess. No, no. The thing about what I always saw Kekistan, like the reason I got the flag and all that stuff,
Yeah.
is that I saw it as meme culture and nothing more. I always used it in the sort of meme culture kind of way.
Yeah.
And I never really took it seriously. But then lately, and I stopped using it and started using this thing instead.
And that thing
then,
was so much cooler. I mean,
it's
so awesome.
way prettier. And I don't even know. I think I have like the Kekistan flag.
Like,
lying
I'll
around
be real.
somewhere.
I mean, half the reason I dislike the Kekistan flag is, woke reasons. The other half is that I just find it ugly as shit. It's just ugly.
Yeah, it's super ugly. But it's like so after a while I stopped watching Sargon because I watched a lot of him right after he did the whole Richard Spencer debate, because suddenly he seemed to take like a left turn, but then he moderated himself back to where he was and even further right. And I noticed that. And I was like, hey, this guy is calling himself a leftist, but he is spending 90% of his time shitting on the left. And then he became a member of UKIP, which, far right party.
Yeah, he was a candidate for UKIP too.
Yeah, and he fucking failed miserably. It was glorious. Like, Sargon of Akkad is like really the stupid person's idea of an intelligent human being, and I find it atrocious that I ever thought he was intelligent, because it's clear he can't read. He doesn't know how to interpret data. He's just a train wreck on so many levels. I almost hope that he is stumbling across this thing at some point, just so that he can put one of his horrible, horrible comments down in your comment section, and then we can have some fun with it on the stream on a later date.
I'll actually tag this Sargon of Akkad, so it makes it easier for him to find.
But very quickly, I've seen that you have had some interactions with June Shuanhead.
Yes, I have.
Do you have like any contact with her, or is it just like through Twitter every now and then?
Oh yeah, we're just like Twitter acquaintances, which very much bothers some people. I have had people get very mad at me for being in contact with June.
But she retweeted you at some point, didn't she?
Oh, probably.
I think she did. But yeah. So the thing about June is that I like her a lot. I think she is a force for good in the world. I do think that she has some bad takes.
Yes.
But I do agree with, like, for example, when she's going after maps and stuff like that, I think that's great. It's important and it's great work. And also, I know that Vosh has taken some interest in her. He has like, hey, I'm trying to turn this girl over to becoming a real leftist. And she has moved quite far left.
From where she was. She was very, like, I think I like, she seems to have progressed a lot from like 2016. And she herself like posts a ton of memes having her shoot. And here we go, there's a bunch of people being like, ugh, I have a lot of issues with June/Shuanhead. And, I have issues too. Don't get me.
The thing is, it's fine to have issues with her or with
someone. With anyone. I mean, the contact that I have with Shuanhead is many people's main issue with me. And, that's, I don't like that I've made people uncomfortable with my contact with a YouTuber. I offered to not have contact with the person, but the problem is that the people who I was talking to their take was, well, you've already had contact with June, and the only reason that you're not having contact with June is because, you got called out for it, so I don't believe you. So then I just said, well, there's no point in changing this then, because, why change if I'm already bad for having even made the mistake in the first place?
Yeah. But to me, it's like, it's the whole, and it gives an arrow into the quiver of the right, because they are always talking about how the left are doing the guilt by association kind of thing. And people on the left, and this is a critique I have of the left, people on the left need to understand that, for example, if you talk to June, that doesn't mean that you have the same viewpoints as June has.
Yeah.
And we can criticize each other, and we can be in disagreement and still have, a productive conversation.
I mean, like we used to do that as well. And one of the people says, the right will always smear the left no matter what we do. I agree.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But my point is that it's not.
But you do confirm the kind of the right wing lies.
Yeah. And also my point is just
reality.
Yeah, my point is that even though they are going to swear the left no matter why, don't give them any extra points. Like don't give them ammunition. So yeah, contact is not the same as endorsement from Apprentice Wizard, which is my roommate, and he is completely right. I don't see the point of talking with June, honestly. Well, then don't talk to June. It's no forcing you to.
Yeah, I mean, I like Some Random Geek. I think he has many good takes, and I think he's been very helpful in educating me and helping to hold me to account. So I'm thankful for his contributions, and I'm thankful for his contributions here too. And I'll continue to listen to any criticisms he has of my politics. God.
Politics.
Yeah, I have no idea. That sounds like a really terrible off-brand thing.
That's like a bro way of saying it.
I don't know if I agree with contact doesn't equal endorsement. Well, it depends on what kind of contact it is, right?
Yeah. Okay, so if you have people like Tim Pool, which is horrible, but if you have people like Tim Pool hanging around with a bunch of alt-right figures, and he never criticizes them, and he
their stuff. Always confirms every lie they say about the left, while somehow to still be a liberal.
At that point, that contact is endorsement, and he needs to be aware of that. Now, Tim Pool is a real smooth-brained kind of guy, so I don't think he would understand the fact that he is endorsing these people by hanging out with them.
Yeah, have you seen the critiques of Marxism? It's a joke. It's a joke. Like, are my YouTube videos the means of production? Is my shovel like?
But the thing is, Tim Pool is in no uncertain terms an idiot. And it's amazing to me that he has gotten as big as he has. I do think that a lot of people are like, hey, this guy is irrelevant at this point. So, yeah. No, he's a bad faith actor, and I don't... like, on the tier list of who is the worst one on the right and stuff like that, he isn't close to being the worst one. I think the worst one would be, in my opinion, Stefan Molyneux or some.
Oh yeah, Stefan Molyneux. I mean, personally, I think Ian Miles Cheong maybe, because he's like a straight up doxer. Then again, like Stefan Molyneux like basically runs a cult where he tells people to disassociate from their family for not being right wing enough.
I love his. I'm not a racist, but I am an empiricist, and I'm like, I don't think you're an empiricist either, because you're basing all of your views off of your own experience and not on data. So Stefan Molyneux is a real fucking dumb person. Let's see, if June does that transformation that Dusty Smith does, then I wouldn't have a problem with people being friends with June. Wait, what have I not seen? What transformation has Dusty done?
Well, Dusty has moved left wing in the sense that he's become like kind of Christy Winters style liberal.
Oh.
But anyway, John Brockman and Molyneux is openly a white supremacist now. Yes, So he is very much a white supremacist. Like, he did this really creepy video where he was like, well, I wouldn't call myself a white supremacist, but I'm an empiricist.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I've seen the exact video. Like, I've seen the exact video, and I'm like, how is it possible to be this dumb? Like,
not really stupid, but really like creepy and malevolent.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like his fan base too. They're horrible. And So on Dusty Smith, just to I don't like him because I do think that he's a grifter. I've seen some of the things he did before, and he seems to me like he's an opportunist and not much else. I know that Kraut did a video on him a while ago, and it wasn't very good, like for Dusty. And also he has tried to attack Matt Dillahunty and stuff like that, and he just strikes me as more of an opportunist than anything else. So that's my hot take on Dusty Smith. When that is said, he had a good take on the Gillette commercial.
What did he say?
He was like, hey, this commercial isn't anti-men. If you look at the commercial, every hero in this commercial are also men. And it's just saying that, hey, men, some of us do shitty things and we can do better than that. Which, where's the lie? Screw Matt Dillahunty. Okay.
Who is Matt Dillahunty? Like,
so Matt Dillahunty is the host of the Atheist Experience. He used to be a Southern Baptist, but he is now very much an atheist.
Okay.
He generally has pretty good takes on mostly anything, I feel. He is.
I'm curious to hear the critiques of Matt Dillahunty. Like,
so am I, because I don't really see where Some Random Geek is coming from with this one.
I think there was someone I remember recently who was like, I am tired of the regressive left, and he kind of like wanted to change towards a Dave Rubin style grifter. Would that be Matt Dillahunty? Like, I remember.
That doesn't sound like him.
Yeah, if it did.
It's way too dude bro for me, and Matt Dillahunty is an atheist who sides with.
Oh, an atheist.
I don't know that word.
Oh, it's this latest thing where people got offended by the term transphobia, so they turned it into trans misogyny.
Oh, Matt Dillahunty is super pro trans rights, by the way. So I don't know what that like.
He supported Contra or something. Is that what?
He had rationality rules on the Atheist Experience. Here's the thing, though, and this is important. Matt Dillahunty came out after that and said that he disavowed those views that Rationality Rules had. Rationality Rules later made a video apologizing for the things that he had said. Matt Dillahunty stated very clearly that he did not agree with Rationality Rules on his views on trans athletes. He couldn't have been clearer.
Well, I'm hearing also that Dillahunty was on the wrong side with Krauss and Silverman and Mythistic? How is that pronounced? Mythist, Milwaukee. And the transphobic takeover of Atheist of Austin, no. Well, since I don't, know about any of those situations, I can't make a judgment call. But I will, obviously, I don't watch any of these people. So I don't know who Matt Dillahunty is. I don't watch the Atheist Experience. So, yeah, the jury's still out for me. I need to look at the evidence. But thank you, followers in the chat, for bringing this to my attention. Obviously, I'll take, this.
Let's see. We see very different things than rationality rules. Didn't apologize. It was a half apology at best. No, he was super clear that I do not share these views with him. He made like 2 videos on it. Anyway. This is turning into me just,
defending people.
Yeah, defending Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that maybe this is something we could talk about another time. But once again, I don't want to say that I'm papering over any of this at all. If this turns out to be true, maybe I'll make a video on Matt Dillahunty or something. But anyway, thank you, Jock Brockman and Summer End of Geek, for bringing this stuff to my attention. It is obviously important.
Oh, wait. Geek saying that rationality rules didn't apologize. I'm pretty sure he did. Because he made like a follow-up video. But yeah, we can go into that another time when you actually had seen what we're talking about. Because right now it's mainly me arguing with your chat.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so this is actually something I wanted to ask you about. It's on the ContraPoints thing, because you had some ContraPoints, the streams that you did,
yes.
But they were very long, and I wasn't as invested. I'm gonna be honest. So, quick version. What is your opinion on the whole thing?
Okay, my opinion on ContraPoints is that there were a few of the earlier scandals that happened that I didn't really agree with the people who were criticizing her on. But on some of these later ones, I think she's had a few bad takes on Twitter. I think she has an unhealthy way of processing criticism. And there needs to be a new kind of relationship with her audience, because it seems like the one that she has isn't working for a lot of people. And her content is moved more and more into the aesthetic and less about, kind of being able to talk about things. And, some random geek says ContraPoints is not going to be able to improve. And I mean, everyone is entitled to their opinion of who people can improve and who can't improve.
Yeah. So from my perspective as a cis male, I can, sort of give my take on ContraPoints.
Okay.
She is maybe the one person that has pushed me the most when it comes to trans rights, and when it comes to seeing, for example, trans women as women. She's not the only one. I would say that I always had a somewhat progressive view on this, but she has absolutely helped me, or helped my opinion get more into line where it is now. I think she is, for the most part, a force for good. I do agree that she has a somewhat toxic relationship to her fan base and stuff like that. Now, it seems like she has a toxic relationship with a lot, since, she is heavily alcoholized and stuff like that right now.
That's why I didn't want to. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I watched her. I can't remember what the video was called. The last video she put up, and I thought it was interesting, and I thought I think she's onto something in it. Now, as far as I know, the controversy around that video was because of one of the voices she used. That it was a trans medicalist or something.
Oh yeah. If only it was just that. He is someone who gets boosted by Gliner. Basically, he's basically male Blair White.
Oh, okay.
And he's very much a very kind of a toxic bully who regularly tries to harass people on Twitter if they dare to. Yeah, I don't like Riley Dennis, but that's aside the point. Don't like the content, don't agree with it, don't find it informative, don't find it helpful. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with her as a person. She doesn't deserve to be harassed. But sorry, I'm just addressing the chat. Personally, I don't like. It's kind of weird, but I kind of like either reading older leftists, or weirdly enough, the people that like. Yeah, Buck Angel also
Okay.
outed Lana Wachowski, who was the director,
Yeah.
one of the directors of The Matrix. So yes, he's
Yeah.
very much a very, very toxic person.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. So about Buck Angel and that whole thing, I haven't done any research into this person, so I can't really talk a lot about that. I do, however, I did. Now, I think you should have to tag Vosh in this as well, because I'm going to talk a lot about him.
Okay.
But Vosh did a video where he was addressing these things, and where he was talking about how the people that are criticizing ContraPoints are going too far, which I thought was a good video. And he mentioned, like, sort of in the broad strokes, who Buck Angel is. And to my understanding, Buck Angel has been important to trans rights as it was like back in the 90s, but he is too regressive for where we are today. That's like my understanding of it. Like, if people disagree with that, that's fine. I don't know enough about this person.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I have to say for that is being progressive at one point in activism doesn't,
Oh no, definitely. I'm not excusing him in any way.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm criticizing Vosh's point.
Because Vosh also makes the point that Buck Angel is a horrible person, by the way. but he mentions that from Buck Angel's time, you can say, transmedicalism was sort of the only way to legitimize transness. Is that a word? Is that a yeah.
My take on that is, I think that people made a very similar argument back in the 70s when they were saying, well, the only way to legitimize womanhood and gay rights is to keep trans people and drag queens out of the queer community.
Yeah.
I'm very wary around the kind of rhetoric that we need to exclude a certain segment of trans people or any sort of queer people in order to advance rights as a whole, because first of all, that strategy didn't even pan out. Like, it didn't work. And trans rights in the 1990s they didn't move very far. They developed in that direction.
Yeah, okay. So what I'll do with this whole thing is that I'll find that specific Vosh video and I can send it to you if you want to take a look at it.
Sure.
And then we can have another discussion at a later point.
Yeah. Here's the thing about ContraPoints. I feel like I am not worthy to criticize ContraPoints anymore because my followers have been so critical of my association with June. I feel like they deserve a woker person to criticize ContraPoints. Like, I'm not good enough, to offer my critiques of her anymore because I am, in some way hurting them, and I don't really know how to stop, because if I disassociate with June, they'll still be hurt. They'll still think that I only did it because of clout. And so I'm kind of at a loss of what to do here. And it's kind of made me like pull back from my internet presence, because I don't know how to make them, feel like I'm supporting them and that I'm on their side, because I am. I tried to respond as politely as possible at first, but then they were like saying that, I was, a gaslighter, that I was like a sexual harasser, because, someone was being made a really judgmental thing where they were like, you don't deserve anything, you don't understand the dynamic that's going on here. You deserve my contempt. And I said, oh, I get off on self-righteous contempt. And then another person said, wow, Lapis is now a sexual harasser.
So do you think that I'm going to use the word virtue signaling, but it's not exactly what I'm meaning. But I hope the context will clear it up. Do you think that, like, virtue, like a purity test sort of thing, do you think that is like a problem for the left in some instances?
Well, yes, I'm going to say, but it's not going to win me any favors on Twitter. I'm going to say yes, because I feel like it is unhelpful in gaining new people into leftism. I think it's unhelpful because it creates this unhealthy dynamic of constantly smashing new idols and building up new ones, even though we should have no idols to begin with. Like, that's the whole point of leftism. But anyway, and yeah, I agree that like a huge part of the element of leftism is critique. It's supposed to be about critique. But I think that some people, you know, they gain power from these purity tests. They gain a certain amount of influence, and it makes them, you know, they gain a certain following, and it helps them feel safer in some ways.
Yeah.
And so they don't see a problem with it, and they'll defend the, you know, the issue, because in some respects, there's a certain group of people on the left who don't see any problems with the left at all. They don't think that there are any problems with the left. They think the left is, you know, perfect, all that is good. The right is all that is evil. You know, I don't like the right. I see it as incredibly toxic and dangerous, and we need to counter it. But at the same time, I recognize that everyone, you know, left, center, right, we're all coming from a background where we have inherited a bunch of, you know, from the cultural hegemony that exists. We've inherited a wide swath of.
Mom, sorry, but we have to get her homework.
Okay.
She's been waiting for over an hour. Oh,
Why don't you just ask me for the homework? You know, if you have.
I did. It's right there. Oh.
So I'll just look at these. Look at the chat for a little bit. Lapis is now a little bit busy.
I'm fine.
Oh, she's back.
They just need to take something out.
Well, let's see. How many woke points are required for good standing?
Yeah, I mean, like, on one hand, I'm also, you know, kind of wary of falling into the whole, oh, evil woke scolds are destroying the left, and I don't like that narrative.
Yeah,
because there is needed critique of these popular figures, right? And there's needed critique of me. You know, I'm not an angel. I need critique to improve.
Yeah. So that's sort of where I'm at. So I don't like gatekeeping. I don't like people telling me that I'm not a good enough leftist because I don't hold this specific view. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think that I hold a lot of the correct views on things because I have my own perspective, and my own perspective is the only perfect one. So I don't like gatekeeping. I think that is unhelpful. When that is said, you know, I think that what we need to critique are bad takes. We need to critique bad takes, and if someone is doing a lot of bad takes and are doing no good takes, then, you know, that is grounds for critiquing the person.
Yeah.
Now, Tim Pool would be one of these people that only has bad takes, more or less, and he is obviously not a leftist, even if he thinks he is.
Yeah. People like Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, I think they're pretty obviously, you know, kind of grifty, especially that how Dave Rubin has now come out as a Christian.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, these people are liars, and they are bad faith actors, and they deserve nothing but critique. So let's see. I also have a hankering to stroke Rat's magnificent beard. I know, it's great, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So some random geek says, if someone says I'm a leftist, I'm expecting them to at least be anti-capitalist. This is why I don't mind purity tests. Well, I don't know. Is there a different? What's the line between purity tests and standards?
But here's the thing, though.
Them both into the same thing.
But here's the thing: if you're saying that, then you're also saying that social democrats wouldn't be able to be seen as leftists.
Yeah, some random geek believes that you have to be an anti-capitalist in order to be left-wing.
Yeah, and I don't. Vosh is a grifter to me. All right.
I almost want to have some random geek on because it seems like we're having a conversation through him in some ways.
Yeah.
And I really like it. I do value the points that he's bringing up. So
yeah, you could bring him on if you want.
Well, it depends. It's what he wants, right? You know, and
yeah. Like obviously, if he wants to come on, then that's fine. But either way, my point with the whole purity tests, I do think that some of them are fine. Like I'm not opposed to purity tests all in all. Like if you don't support like a public healthcare system and don't support free at the point of service college, if you don't support these things, then obviously you're not a leftist. But at that point, why would you call yourself a leftist?
Yeah, LGBT rights, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have anything against purity tests intrinsically. I just think that some parts of the left, and this is my critique of the left, some parts of the left are way too gatekeepy with that whole the moniker of the left. So it's like when people tell me that, oh yeah, for example, Kyle Kalinske isn't on the left because he doesn't believe in getting rid of capitalism altogether, that is not a good enough point for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the woke crowd that doesn't necessarily I watch Kyle Kalinske, and I think that he is a useful source, especially for the people who are newer to leftism. Like, here's the thing. People are always going on about the alt-right to, the libertarian to alt-right pipeline, or, the anti-CW to alt-right pipeline. I don't understand why far leftists who are, socialists, communists, what have you, can't set up a similar thing of our own, where we, a liberal to communist pipeline. I can understand why that couldn't be possible as well, and why we can't, tolerate some of these more moderate figures, so long as we can find a way of engaging with them that brings people further and further down the pipe.
Yeah.
Just tactically, I see no issue with that. Do I have some issues with Kyle Kalinski's politics? I mean, obviously, he's a social democrat. I'm a far left socialist. There's going to be some conflict there.
Yeah.
And
so
said some stuff on non-binary issues that I'm not okay with.
But then again, like, if you take non-binary issues and stuff, that's obviously not his ballpark, and it's like he is out of his waters. Is that the term? He's out of his waters when he talks about that, because that isn't like his pejorative. I am now using a lot of words. I'm not sure if I'm using correctly. His viewpoint is that
his perspective.
Perspective. There you go. Is basically that the way to legislate is that you legislate with laws that will affect everyone at the same. So he doesn't care if people are gay, straight, cis, trans, whatever, because he believes that if you out of his element, thank you. If he believes that if you legislate with laws that will be for everyone, then everyone is helped. So yeah. By the way, nice to see you, Memes. I haven't talked to you in a while. I saw you had a talk with him for a little while ago.
Yeah, it was fun. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And here is the geek.
Hello.
All right. Hello there.
Look, I love that hat. Very proletarian.
And yet there's other hats that I could choose from. I didn't want to distract the conversation with my hats, but since you brought it up, there's also there's a bag in there because the room's a mess. There's also this hat I have.
If you're taking off the hat, you kind of look like the guitar player in my band.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, the long hair and the beard and stuff. Yes, I don't have a glorious beard as you, Rat, but like, it's like I actually trim and I actually shave, and so.
Yeah, I can't do that. I look like, what can I say? A 14-year-old girl if I take my beard.
Someone in the chat was remarking on the reason I'm constantly bouncing. It's because this is what I'm sitting on.
I did notice that too.
Yeah.
The reason I'm constantly bouncing is because, I'm on this ball. It's apparently good for posture.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
All the things in my house have been replaced with balls. No longer do we have
that sounds very much like a masculine household.
Yeah.
Some lady balls. So,
right.
what was the conversation as I entered the chat?
Okay, so I want to know why you think Vosh is a grifter.
Okay, so to be fair, I'll just be upfront that like haven't watched much of Vosh's streams. I just never know of like Vosh until he started making like bad takes. I don't know what was like the first bad take he made, but it was something related to like trans people. But then it was like later on when he said that he was a gender abolitionist as well. That was just like, no, I don't like that take. And then when he was again arguing with other trans people about gender as a cis man as well, that's where it's just like part of it is also the masks kind of slips off. And then he either seems to be like, I don't know, have this like big problem with like people this. What was that?
Sorry, it was my roommate.
Your roommate certainly is a noisy presence.
Yeah. He looks somewhat uncomfortable right now.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
it's fine. Anyway.
So when Vosh was like has these arguments on Twitter with like trans people, he then will go to his Discord and just complain. Every time that I have these kind of arguments with these people who disagree with me, it's always time to be like trans people, and they will say the comment is like maybe these people shouldn't be around, and it's like then I have. My friend does have receipts. I don't have it available right now for me to pull up or anything like that, but I have like seen those like screenshots of Vosh's like comments and stuff like that. So, and also like when he would defend Vosh would defend Contra, and I'm one of those people who have their like criticisms of Contra. I in fact adopted the label of like, and I'm also genderqueer, demi-non-binary male plus, so he, they are my pronouns. I also adopted the label of MB cultural capitalist, which is something Peter Coffin has said, and I have my issues with Peter Coffin too.
Peter Coffin, yeah. So Some Random Geek is very much in the camp of the major figures of BreadTube being very corrupt, very problematic, and kind of we need to restart the cycle. He doesn't feel like this current crowd is sufficiently devoted to queer people in particular, especially to the non-binary community, and doesn't do enough to accommodate people who are already progressive, and instead focuses on recruiting people who are bigoted or centrist or what have you.
Yes, that's along the lines of some microtudes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can't list obviously all of them.
That's the thing. We'd be here all night if I go through like the list of the people on the shit list, and I could go into other ones. But yeah.
But okay, so I don't know. I watch a lot of Vosh. Like I try to get more or less every stream he does. I personally like it. Like I mentioned earlier. He is one of the people that has pushed me rather far to the left. And I think he has a lot of good takes on most stuff. Now, I don't agree with all of his takes. The gender abolitionism, again, this isn't really in my ballpark. So I wouldn't be able to form a cohesive argument either for or against. Personally, I'm a cis male and I enjoy being a cis male, so I have all the privilege in the world with that, I guess. So yeah, I can't really argue for or against any of those points. So yeah, that's I guess my take on that part. I haven't seen the things that you are referring to with the somewhat toxic behavior. Like if you have screenshots of it, you can DM it to me on Twitter if you want.
Okay.
But it's difficult to have a conversation when we have no evidence really to bring forward one way or another. I think maybe perhaps we could like reschedule a stream at some point to talk more about some of your criticisms, Geek.
I can, yeah. Then I can like I can do my best to like
evidences available because it is just difficult to deal with accusations when you have no receipts, as they say.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, but I honestly, I kind of like your advice as someone who's very critical of June and my kind of association with June. How should I handle this? Because I like, the problem is that the main person who was critical of it blocked me, and the other one, harassed me to the point where I blocked them. So and since then I haven't really tackled the criticism. I've just felt really, really like, I haven't felt like motivated to do anything in my life, and I felt like really unmotivated in my political takes as well, because I knew somewhere that I was, causing pain to people, and I didn't like that. So I want to know, how can I handle this? Because I'm worried that, the simple answer is just, unfollow June, block her, only associate with the good people. But the problem with that solution is, what happens next? Who is deemed not good enough for me to associate with?
Oh, that would be me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after you, and then who next? Like, it becomes kind of this cycle, and I don't know, like, I am already a person who's extremely socially isolated, so I don't know how much can I accommodate this cycle until it becomes that I have no friends at all. That's one thing. The other thing is, even if I do accommodate the cycle, which, some part of me wants to, I don't know if it will be good enough. I don't know if it will reduce any of the pain that is felt by these people who seem to be very much in pain because I've associated with someone that they don't like. And their take was basically, when I asked them, okay, will you unblock me if I, unfollow June and I try to satisfy you? Because I was, I didn't want to hurt anyone. And when I saw that they were in pain, I tried to talk to them. They said, no, because you shouldn't have done it in the first place. So, like, what am I supposed to do with that?
In that case, they see you as a lost cause, and I would say that you shouldn't be catering to them anyway.
Well, here's the thing. It's you already kind of framed it as like they didn't like you because you are following someone that they don't like. I don't think it's just a case of where we don't like June. We don't think that June is a good person. She's been part of Gamergate, and she still is not like apologized for that. Okay, I have finally followed some of like what Peter Coffin has said, and apparently June has reached out to Peter Coffin and apologized to Peter Coffin for some of the things she said in the past. Okay, but I also have not seen that big of a change of behavior in June to really transform herself, or really to end the kind of person that she pretty much still is, because like a month ago she said that like she's still anti-ID poll, she's still against pop feminists, she's still all these other things. And what did spark like the infighting on the left like 2 weeks ago was when June screenshots, she didn't quote-tweet, okay, fair, but screenshot Nir Sarkeesian, and with the caption up, she's at it again when Nir Sarkeesian was complaining about The Mandalorian, the new Star Wars show, which is a critique I kind of agree with, like a Nir Sarkeesian on, but that's also another thing, is like I agree, not on everything, but a lot with what Nir Sarkeesian says. And so one thing is, like, if you cause someone harm, it's the person, that victim, is their decision to reach out or be friends or to forgive, like the abuser, I'll say June in this example, is the victims themselves. They have the right to forgive the abuser. And sometimes, yeah, they will never forgive them. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's their decision. Kind of like a similar situation when Total Biscuit, the critical Brit, John, I forgot his last name, died of cancer. He died at 33. It's a tragedy in itself. But yet Total Biscuit was part of Gamergate, harassed a whole bunch of people, caused a lot of harm there, and it always had terrible takes on like trans people as well, joking that he'll say, oh, so then I identify as a toaster. And so that's why, while some people are sad that he died, like Jim Sterling was, but they were colleagues, others were ambivalent and different because his tragedy, he died at 33, but yet he caused a lot of harm. There were people that saying that, yeah, I'm dancing on his grave because he was terrible to trans people.
Yeah, and I mean, on some level, like, I get it if it's like a war criminal or something, but I don't want to police the way anyone processes their tragedy. But at the same time, like, that really, it did rub me the wrong way at the time. It really did. Like, I can't in good faith, celebrate the death of someone unless they've really done something horrible, like, I don't know, killed another person or something. Like, you really have to be horrible to get me to actually celebrate your death.
Some people think that like what Total Biscuit did was kind of horrible, or the kind of harassment that he fueled was kind of horrible, or like the harassment that June did was kind of horrible too. June also kind of like slut shamed Zoe Quinn, not the best, not an angel in herself, but she slut shamed Zoe Quinn off of rumors.
Did you just use the not an angel?
Yeah, not an angel for Zoe Quinn, because like I heard there's some things about like Zoe Quinn has done, so I'm not gonna say she's perfect, but Zoe Quinn was a victim in like Gamergate. Yes.
Like, here's the thing, like, no one deserves to be slut shamed whether they're not an angel or not. Like, there's no need to put that up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but okay, so this goes into what I was talking about. And June has a lot of bad takes. I don't disagree with that. However, she also has some pretty decent takes on other things, and she's pretty open about where she is politically now. She is a social democrat. She is a Bernie supporter. She is a huge fan of Tulsi Gabbard. So I don't know.
Having good politics does not make you a good person.
No, but I don't know her, so I can't really say if she's a good person or not on a personal level. Now, she has having bad politics doesn't necessarily make you a bad person either. It could just make you, misinformed. Again,
I don't know. I personally wouldn't rather be like friends with someone who had bad politics. I don't know. Maybe it's like.
Geek is completely your business, of course. No one should be demanding that Geek, like June's content, or that Geek like Contra's content, or that Geek forgive or like any of these figures. And I suppose what Geek is saying is that I should apply the same standards to the people who are critical of me. And I don't demand that people like my content. I just, on some level, I find it difficult to improve or try to process criticism to improve if, there's no point, if they still hate me anyway. Like, how am I helping? Nothing I do, nothing I change is producing a positive reaction. And so what that created in me was a feeling of sterility and stasis, and that I didn't want to, continue promoting, the progressive values that I feel I have, because I was worried that I would cause someone harm. And I really, really don't want to cause anyone harm. These people, people say, oh, these people are so oversensitive. Oh, these people say that, they don't matter. These people do matter to me, which is why I tried to have a conversation with them. And that's why I'm trying to process their criticisms. But if, like, my attempt to do that just gets me called like a gaslighter. Like, it's not gaslighting to try to talk to people about criticisms. I'm sorry. Gaslighting has a definition. It's when, an abusive individual tries to make their abuse victim doubt their version of reality. It's not when a teenager tries to process criticisms on the internet.
Well, okay. So to sort of, if you were to look at my old YouTube videos, you would probably not like what you saw. And here's the thing: if people are looking at those videos and thinking that, oh, this guy's a piece of shit, and then they are discarding me because they think that, oh, I will be unable to change. I don't know. I do think that June has taken a turn to the left. Now, she is not perfect. She is, again, still a social democrat. Whereas I would say that she was more of a liberal earlier.
Or like center right.
Yeah, centrist in me.
Yeah. Now I see liberal as center right. So
me too. Yeah.
So, but my point being that some people make these changes or have a longer journey to take, or spend more time with this journey towards either the right or the left. Now, the journey towards the right is problematic, and I wouldn't encourage people to take that route. So,
yeah,
if anyone is on that route and watching, stop watching Jordan Peterson.
I I mean, clearly Jordan Peterson needs to sort out his own life. Like, I mean, he checked in for rehab. He's constantly breaking down and crying all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I feel bad for the guy because he's in so much pain. I don't appreciate, the constant transphobic lobbying he's done in my Canada to deny me rights. But on the other hand, yeah, clearly this is a guy who is going through a lot of struggles and just needs some time. He needs some time to step back from his life and really reevaluate if his clean your room ideology is working for him, because from an outside perspective it really seems like it isn't.
Jordan Peterson will hate the state of my room right now, I bet. Yes,
I think it was,
but that's the tutu over there. Yes,
I think it was TJ Kirk that was. He is convinced that Jordan Peterson's room is filthy as fuck. So
have you seen the state of his kitchen? It was pretty bad. I've seen a few of his streams.
I don't watch TJ Kirk. I used to watch him when he was like this restaurant on the channel Awesome, but that was a long time ago, like 8 years ago. 8 years ago now.
Oh yeah, I remember Channel Awesome.
Yes. They suck now. Yes, they also made John Watson also made like a helicopter joke, or like we can identify as something else, and I was just like, oh, dude. But he was,
the helicopter joke is so bad.
Yes, but
I love when people are like, oh, the left can't meme, and then the only thing they have is like Pepe and the helicopter joke, and I'm like, well, I guess the right can't meme either. It's horrible.
But then again, I'm too far left for some people.
So how would you describe your politics?
Me? I'm a narco-syndicalist. I used to identify as a narco-communist, but I decided to identify as narco-syndicalist. It's more or less the same thing. It's just like what you focus on. Narco-syndicalists focus on unions and stuff like that. But my political journey started with learning about feminism and opening up feminism. And then I met some socialists like Owen McDonald, our good friend. And then that's where it's just like I became more definitely socialist, at least of some kind, and at least anti-capitalist. And then Thought Science video on the stage convinced me to be an anarchist because, okay, I understand why anarchists have the critiques against government and the state. And so I guess an anarchist now. I've been that ever since. And I think going back to because your concerns about what to do now. Well, here's I get one thing is honestly, I will say this before, I will say it again. I didn't become an anarchist to make friends. It's if I want to make friends, I'll talk about anime or talk about all those other things. So in trying to do practice, and I should do more real world practice, honestly. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of hard on myself on as well, or a little hard on myself. Just a tiny voice in my head that's like an imposter syndrome kind of voice that I try not to listen to as much. Mm-hmm. But as it's, I don't. Well, here's the thing. Also, I was just going to bring it up. Right now, as it is, I'm still a patron of Gwen No Fear, still sub to her YouTube channel, and so we still follow each other on Twitter.
But wait, isn't she a serial rapist?
Exactly. She did, while drunk, sexually assaulted either ex-girlfriend or someone in her polycule, and also then broke into her ex-girlfriend's house.
But no, her ex-girlfriend also made an accusation where she said that she was raped by Gwen.
Yes.
I mean, June has bad politics, and those politics deserve criticism, and I will continue to criticize those. When she makes a bad take, I'll criticize it in her mentions. I'll still do my part to help bring her, help her understand when she's made a take that I disagree with. And my position hasn't changed whatsoever. I'm not going to rant about woke scolds or something because people were criticizing me on Twitter. No, I want to listen to the criticism. I want to process it. But I mean, I think there's a tad bit of hypocrisy if you can be friends with a serial rapist and yet be critical of me for being friends with someone with bad politics.
Then that was part of my point. It's just if someone criticized me for being friends with Gwen still, I will say, you're right. And then I have to evaluate myself of the friendship of Gwen, and probably, and I have thought about ending my association with Gwen. And so and people can judge me and then and cut me out of their life if they feel that because of me right now still being friends with Glenn, it's too much for them. So,
Okay,
I just accept that.
okay,
So it's difficult, but I don't know what's a good answer after that. I just accept that.
All right. So I'm a little bit interested in where you sort of draw the line, because okay, so you're saying that June is not good enough.
From what I've seen, right now,
yeah,
and it's
all right.
It's a case by case basis, honestly.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's sort of
So,
like
so
a
if you
case-by-case
take
basis,
me for example, I'm describing myself as a syndicalist nowadays. Would that be sort of far enough to the left, or well, seeing as you're an anarcho-syndicalist, then I would guess that is. I'm not sold on anarchy yet, but I'm not making any promises to anyone that I'm not going to be at some point. But so the point is, if a social democrat is not far enough to the left, okay, then we move on to a democratic socialist. Are the people that ascribe to that far enough to the left?
they are further left to me than and I am comfortable with. Like they are further left than like a liberal. So it's kind of a sliding scale almost. It's like and sometimes that doesn't mean that like I will never work with like people who I don't fully agree with. Absolutely, because if we can all agree, if we're like working as just like one group on just one issue, and all agree that yes, let's work together on that issue, then I can work with Marxist-Leninists and Marxist-Leninist malice, and I can work with Trotskyists even if I'm never going to be friends with Trotskyists. Do I see the thing is also I'm not one of these people that think that left unity is the thing. I don't think it's something that we should strive for. Plus, there's also like after we get like absolutely no capitalism anywhere in the world, capitalism is free from the world, it's all some form of socialism everywhere in the world, then we'll just have sectarian wars, I'm sure, because of like Marxist-Leninists and like statists will fight against anarchists as always. But that's why anarchism is always a work in progress. It's never an end goal. Even if we get to fully locally automated gay-based communism, there's probably still things that we can like analyze in ourselves and see what can we improve on. Like think about like how can we get rid of all hierarchies? Okay, there may be just hierarchies, but like can we work to like make them more just as much as possible? So that's how I kind of see it. So I can improve as well.
All right. I had a point. I should have written it down. But like, so because when we were talking about like purity tests and stuff like that, I usually my usual thought is that people, when you look at like the political compass, for example, people in the green square are the people that I usually look at as my allies. Now I can agree with people in the red square and people in the purple square on things, but the people in the blue square are basically the enemies. Yeah, so like for example, libertarians, I usually agree with them on a lot of social issues because they are very much like, hey, you know what? Let's not step on people's private lives. Don't tread on me and all that stuff.
Unless you're Liberty Hangout, in which case it's all about stepping on people's lives.
Yeah. Whereas on the economic issues, the more authoritarian leftists, well, I agree with their economic policies. I don't like authoritarianism, though. That's why I don't see the more authoritarian communists as allies of me. But I do not agree with the your left unity not being something that we should strive for, kind of thing. Mainly because the right is very good at uniting, and if we don't unite on the left, then we will lose.
That doesn't left unity not being a thing doesn't mean that we can't work together on the goals we can agree with, like stopping fascism. That's probably the one thing that like tankies and anarchists can agree on. capitalism's evil and let's punch the fascists. Now, I would say that, like, say socialism is still capitalist. It's just like bureaucratic capitalist as opposed to the corporate capitalist, and that'll be the things that like tankies and like anarchists will disagree on. So we can, it's kind of like big tent, whereas like on one issue we can all move together.
Okay, so you're thinking issue by issue.
Yes, issue by issue. That's it.
Well, in that case, I just misunderstood, I guess, because I do agree more with that. Now, I have a pretty cringe upload on my channel where I'm basically saying that, hey, if the goal is to stop censorship, I would even work with the alt-right. Again, cringy take. I wouldn't say that today. I'm going to release a video where I basically disavow some of my points, because I know that the alt-right is only want to stop censorship for themselves. They don't give a shit if the leftists are censored. They never fight for leftists that
or even like people who are not as right as them. Like, I mean, look at the grifter war that's going on right now between Charlie Kirk and what's his face, Fuentes.
Oh, Fuentes. Oh my god.
The Hispanic.
Oh no. Like, he is a literal Nazi.
Yeah. He has the last name of Fuentes as well.
Yeah, he's a Hispanic Nazi, which is strange. But
what's even stranger are the Jewish Nazis. That's fucking strange, and they do exist.
That's interesting. I would at least call them fascists for sure, but like being a Nazi while Jewish, like that's a separate topic.
But
like
so
Stephen Miller is a fascist.
Yes,
even though he's Jewish.
Yes.
Yeah, Netanyahu is a fascist.
Yeah, he's like.
I was so happy when he wasn't able to ensure his majority after the election. But I think he's still the prime minister, and they're trying to figure out how to form a government.
There keeps being elections, but the coalition is too clumsy for there to be a government formed. That seems to be a big problem in the proportional representation democracy.
I don't see I don't agree. I don't understand what you're talking about.
It's a fabulous steampunk hat. You have to applaud. You have to applaud.
But it's like in Sweden, for example. Sweden is having a huge problem now because their fascist party, the Sweden Democrats, have been growing and growing and growing, and nobody wants to work with them. And now they are the biggest party in Sweden.
Yeah.
It's creepy as fuck because those guys have like legitimate ties to like Nazism. Like their party started as a legit Nazi party.
But like, no, I really hate immigrants, so I'm going to vote for the Sweden Democrats.
Yeah.
And yet Americans are like, but we can reform our country to be like Norway and Sweden, and look at them, they're so great, aren't they? And it's like, do you actually know what's happening right now in those countries?
I mean,
Norway's doing okay. We are actually seeing a left-leaning wind across the country right now. Our government, which has we have like the largest fascist party in Norway since the Second World War. They are in government right now, and they are doing horrible. Like when they entered their government position, I think they were at like 15% of the vote. Now they're down to like 8%, and they are continuing to sink. Whereas the communist part, they are known as one of the communist parties. We have multiple, but one of them are up at to 5% right now, and it's incredible to watch.
Yeah.
And the Communist Party, they got in our last local election, they became larger than the Fascist Party.
Wow,
where I live. So that was great, especially since I voted for him, not the Fascist Party.
Have you tried punching the fascists, as John Bruckman asked in the chat?
Oh, we have a local fascist that is walking around, and he is like, I've usually been very very restrictive about calling him a fascist, because he really doesn't like to, and I like to have the high ground. But because he has tried to tell me on Twitter multiple times that I have called him a Nazi and a fascist, and I have never done so. So, but he is. So today, I guess he's a fascist. He has like this Minds account and a Gab account where he tries to
Is there
upload like
anyone
daily
who has a
news.
Gab account? Like, I'm serious question.
Sponsors.
Is there a single good person who has a Gab account?
I have a Gab account.
Oh, okay.
I never use it. I never use it.
Okay.
Won't touch
I
me.
mean, I don't know if
But-
my younger brother has a Gab account, but he does have a Minds.com account.
I do have a Minds account too, but I mainly created these accounts when I saw that Twitter and Facebook are declining in memberships, and I'm like, hey, if we get a strong leftist, what can I say, presence on these pages, then we can actually turn the tide. However, no other leftists agree with me, so I'm alone on these websites, and I don't
There's
use
Mastodon, but I don't use Mastodon either. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
like,
but-
No, so to me, Twitter is fine.
yeah.
I mean,
But
there's
yeah.
what, like 400 million people on Twitter.
Yeah, and Facebook is, everyone around me use Facebook, so I don't upload much there, but I do use it for the Messenger app.
I really want to delete my Facebook. If it wasn't for the super cool events function, which
Yeah, that
know
event.
about all the leftist events that are going on in my area, I would immediately delete Facebook. I hate it so much. It's so ugly.
But I swear that like Facebook, I do post a lot on Facebook because I have friends who are very active on Facebook, and I'm certain that the Facebook is hiding my memes and my like kind of stuff from my conservative like friends or some of my family members because they don't see it, but yet I constantly post them, and so I'm sure they're hiding my posts from those people.
The Facebook algorithms are horrible. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mainly use it for like band stuff and posting pictures of my cat that died recently.
Mm.
What was her name?
His name was Phoenix.
After the bird, right?
Yeah, because he thought he could fly when he was a kitten. Meaning he always jumped off of high stairs and trees and stuff like that. So his name was Phoenix Duracell, which, because he never went on low energy, so we named him after a battery. He was a great cat, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Now, where was I going with the whole Minds thing? Yeah, the fascist party here did horrible, and because they haven't been able to follow through on any of their promises that they, like, we're going to build a bunch of roads, and we have like this sort of taxation system when people drive on our roads, and they were going to abolish that, and they haven't done
toll
that.
roads?
Toll booths, I guess. And they were like, we're going to abolish all the toll booths. Whenever we get into government, we're going to put signs on all of the toll booths in the country where it's going to say free as long as we are in government. And of course, that hasn't happened. And so that made it so that a new party that was like the People's Action Against Toll Booths grew up and got like, I don't know, 5% of all the votes in Norway. It was ridiculous.
Wow. I guess
Yeah.
toll booths are really a flashpoint issue in Norway.
It's a weird thing because we have a lot of issues that we need to take care of, especially after we have had a right-leaning government for so long. And
Yeah. Haven't been
and,
in power like what? Since 2013?
yeah. But on the other hand, on the positive note, the Socialist Party, the Democratic Socialists did pretty well, and the Communists did pretty well, and the Green Party did amazingly well. So it was fun to see. I had a good time that evening.
Here I am, America, with the first past the post, and thus the only the one shake all, and the two-party system, thus, and of course the electoral colleges for presidents.
You guys should try out parliamentarism. It's actually quite okay.
Yeah, at this point, it's just like I want something that's better. I mean, it's like true. Okay, our representative democracy republic is better than a dictatorship, but give it time. But like, I want at least a mixed proportional representation, which is be better than what we have now. Though, of course, I'm an anarchist, so I would propose for like either direct democracy or liquid democracy. But like, so many people in America have like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't want mob rule.
So I have a question about, because you mentioned identity politics earlier, and I am a person who has generally been against identity politics.
Interesting.
What does identity politics mean?
Yeah. So to me, that means that getting representation for a identity group is more important than the policies that are being pushed. So that's how I see it. Now, that's my perspective on it. People that would, for example, vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman, that's a problem, because that argument leads to I would vote for Sarah Palin over Bernie Sanders.
Hire more women guards.
Yeah.
So when that is said, I also agree that, for example, trans people should be more represented, and they should be. But to me, the policies are the most important thing. So who is pushing for the policies are less important than the right policies being pushed.
Okay, so well, for me, it's just like, for example, I don't think I will. Not that like I idolize Bernie Sanders. I am not a Bernie bro, but I like a lot of Bernie Sanders' policies economically. I think they're the best that we have. They're the most left that I have amongst the Democratic candidates for president. But then again, if someone like AOC was like running for president, she can't right now, she's still young, or like Anya Pirelli, Ilhan Omar can, she's not a naturalized citizen, unfortunately. She immigrated from Somalia. But if one of the members of the squad was be running, then I would think like, okay, I think like they have the check mark for the identity politics as well, or being good on social justice issues. Because like Bernie's, I get mixed results or opinions on Bernie on social justice issues, because Bernie, got arrested during the civil rights and defending the civil rights, but yet I also seen him like he-peed to like a woman, and so he's not he-peed. Basically, he did not answer a woman's question at a CNN town hall. A woman asked a question in the audience. He did not answer that question and just went on his policy. But then
what was the question?
I forgot. Christy Winters made a video about that, but it was like,
about someone not answering a question.
But when the person who hosted the town hall, CNN anchor, said the same question, and it's a man, then Bernie Sanders actually directly answered that question. So it's like, I
suppose if that phenomenon was repeated over and over, it might be a problem. If it happened once, I can't really care.
We need to remember, though, that Bernie is a politician, and politicians have a tendency to not answer questions directly either way.
There's always that, other people, other comrades who agrees with me, or other anarchists, but yet are like either women or people of color or trans people, when they hear Bernie is the best or the most left of the political candidates that we have for president right now, they go, and I respect their opinions on that. So it's like, it's all more because like Bernie happens to be a old cis white man, and so not that there's anything inherently wrong with him being a old cis white man, but that will mean that he has blind spots as well. I also am a cis-passing white man as well. I'm sure that I have blind spots that I need to correct on when I do make those mistakes. And so that's where I think I don't agree with all these people who like are anti-identity politics or like hate identity politics. I think I think there should be more diversity in legislation, in like making movies or media representation, because I think that in diversity, I almost will say that diversity in of itself is a good thing. And so I don't agree with like the with this anti-identity politics crowd, which is why I have my problems with like Zero Books as an example for like not taking issues that trans people have seriously or a thing like that. Or it's like I do not agree with like no, listen, let's just end capitalism first, and then we'll have the women's revelation, then we'll have the people of color's revelation, then we'll have the trans people's revelations. Your liberations will have to wait once we liberate everyone from capitalism. I say no, let's do
that argument though. I've heard people criticize that argument before, but I've never heard anyone actually make it.
Okay, so when it comes to representation in for example, popular culture, I would say, and this might be a bad take. If anyone thinks that this is a bad take, I'm, open to criticism. But I would say that representation is important. However, when it's pandering, it's bad.
How is it pandering, though?
It depends on the context. I agree that there are negative forms of representation. Like, for example, if you have a bunch of a diverse cast of characters, but they all fall into reductive stereotypes, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Also, I think that what J.K. Rowling is doing is pretty poor. Being like, maybe Dumbledore was gay all along. And I'm like, well, why didn't you actually make that point in the books then?
Actually, a quick point on that.
For diversity, she didn't write.
Right. Or another thing, like Console Geeks made a video where he said, like, it's one thing to like bait us with LGBTQ plus representation, but there has to be something on the hook, like the LeFleuth from the Beauty and Beast like live action remake. Okay, yes, you say he's gay. Where do we see that in the movie? We don't, except till the very end. Or Leno Calrissian, the writer tells us that he's pansexual. We if he is pansexual, we want to see him just kiss a woman, then kiss a man, then kiss an alien, and kiss a robot. Then it'll prove to be pansexual. We want to see it on screen.
On the other hand, I'm also like, if they were never to say that he was a pansexual, I don't see a problem with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Because like
it's the whole that's what I mean by pandering. Like, when they're saying like, oh yeah, this guy is definitely pansexual, and it's like, well, is there a reason that you said that other than the fact that you want you want the asses in the seats, obviously. So to me that doesn't make any sense. Other than that, I also have like, okay, so the new Lord of the Rings series, that Amazon, I think, is amazing. Is making that they were talking about how some of the elves were going to be black, which I intrinsically I don't have a problem with it. I would if it was like this. Aragorn comes into a scene and he's like, "Yeah, I've brought with me all of my elf bros," and you see like 14 super white Aryan elves and one black elf, and there's no explanation as to, they can make lore explanations to it. For example, some elves went further south and then they met some people and then they mated with them, and so this half elf is colored because X, Y, and Z. But if it's just to bring the point of diversity, then that would be pandering to me.
Interesting.
But, yeah. So I'm not saying it is a bad thing or that it's a good thing. I'm saying you can have bad and good versions of this representation. That sometimes it would need explanation lore-wise, and that would be fine. I wouldn't have a problem with that. And sometimes it's like you said, hey, why are you saying that this character is pansexual if we don't see any signs of that in the movie, and it's obviously something that you came up with on your corporate meeting because you wanted people to go see the movie.
There's also the thing of sometimes like the LGBTQ plus individuals would like are so starved for representation that they'll just like glom onto like anything and that they see. So like even if like these characters are not gay canonically in the show, they will just like think that they are just to kind of like get that fix, as it were. But like yeah, but I think it's actually coming up to a different point that's like kind of related. That's where it's like there needs to be like more queer people behind the camera in the writers' room or in those.
But
Not necessarily.
Also, like in TV shows nowadays, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I do feel like it always has to be one strong female empowered woman that is like a corporate head or something, and she is always a lesbian. And at that point, to me, it's like, well, this almost seems like you guys are doing this on purpose right now, instead of like you can have an LGBT character that isn't like doing the whole empowered woman.
That does almost fall into a stereotype of like, well, she's built for tough. That's why she gets to the top of the corporate ladder, thinking like in Jessica Jones. But like, while Carrie Ann Moore's like character seemed to be more of a stereotype, but at least like there was an actual relationship that they have there, and it seemed more like, well, they're lesbians, but they have same dynamics as like heterosexual couples. So it's like in one ways I think you're right, is that it fell into a stereotype, but in other ways that show still had like pretty good representation in other regards.
Yeah, so I would say Jessica Jones is actually a pretty good show.
Yes,
all over, and that is the most important thing to me. It has to be written well. It can't be into
yeah, I mean that's the most important thing of any piece of media, is not who is being cast, it's how well they do.
I mean,
I don't think anyone would disagree with that, though.
Right. I mean, anyone. The thing is, like the right wingers that complain about forced diversity and stuff like that, like when they rail against like the Star Wars and stuff like that. Listen, Michael B. Jordan was in Fan Four Stick, and there wasn't a lot of like oh my god, they cast a black person as Johnny Storm in this movie because the movie was shit, and we didn't care about it. So just because there's like diversity in media doesn't mean that like SJWs are going to automatically love it. And now something like Black Panther was just happened to be a good movie as well, but also was joyfully African.
Yeah. So I think to sort of sum up my point is that I'm happy to see diversity in popular culture in movies, for example. I think it's great as long as it fits in with the rest of the world building. So for example, if you take a show like Boardwalk Empire, which is set in a specific time, all that, it wouldn't have made sense if Nookie was black now, or if they cast a black Al Capone because, diversity. On the other hand, whitewashing is the problem. Gods of Egypt got all the hellfire it deserved for So I'm not saying that only white men can play these roles. That would be like a right-leaning argument, and I would think that people making those arguments are full of shit. Mm-hmm. I think diversity is great, but I don't like going into a movie, seeing it, and being like, yeah, those lesbian characters were sticking out like a sore thumb. I don't know if it was a pun in there, but. In that case, the pun was very much unintended. So that's my take on it. My take on
more diversity in media.
Yeah, and as long as the media is good. As long as it's done correctly, I'm very, very much on board.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I guess you already explained how diversity done correctly looks like to you. Whereas just like if you feel like it's sticking out as a sore thumb to you, then you and distracts from the story. Anything that distracts from the story this individual, the individual case, certainly is a negative for that person in that case, for their perspective from watching the movie. And so, and everyone can like say X movie is terrible and X movie is great, and we can all have like our different opinions on like The Last Jedi, for example. So
Yeah.
So
I actually like that movie. You know,
I love The Last Jedi.
I wouldn't say it was my favorite of the Star Wars movies, but I think it was like top 4, maybe.
Yes,
Really?
easily top 3 for me.
It's literally bottoming out for me. It's the worst Star Wars movie in my opinion.
What about Attack of the Clones?
No, actually, Attack of the Clones was for the longest time the only Star Wars movie I would say this is a bad movie in and of itself. The Last Jedi is to me even worse. I think it's so bad.
Well, I mean, like, it doesn't have. Does The Last Jedi have those really awful wooden performances?
No, but here's the thing:
And terrible dialogue.
The Last Jedi is downright offensive to the lore of Star Wars.
Oh, are we going to have a whole nother stream just about this?
No, but okay. Very quickly, I won't get into it because it's a long topic. But to me, The Last Jedi had so many things that went against established lore. Like I don't care that they have like, again, strong female characters, all that stuff, great stuff. But first of all, Rose, horrible character. Second of all, the casino thing, horrible, very, very pandering. And it's ironic that
I disagree.
It's ironic that thing is coming from Disney, which is like the Antichrist embodied in a company.
Just right. This did a video about like how our episode Recess was anti-monopoly, and Disney's pretty much doing that. So yeah.
And also, like, since when could you use a spaceship in light speed to project as a weapon? Why didn't they do that to the Death Star? Anyway, that is
they made a compelling scene in The Last Jedi.
It looked phenomenal. It looked great, but it made no sense. But again, we don't have to get into like if it was a good or bad movie. You guys can like it. I hate it. I think it's a horrible.
Well, can we at least all agree the Attack of the Clones was a bad movie?
Oh
yes.
Yeah.
What about the Ewoks movies?
I saw the animated Ewoks movie when I was a kid. And for some reason, the villain is an evil witch. What?
So I have a hot take on the Star Wars thing that most people disagree with me, and that is I really like the Phantom Menace. I like that movie so much. I have so many fond memories of that movie.
Okay, like the Phantom
Paul
Menace.
Race was cool.
Fucking Darth.
It's a mixed bag for me. Like I don't really like the kind of the racial stereotypes in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like why is there
like I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm saying I like the movie.
That's the thing.
It's kind of the difference between The Room. Like that's an objectively terrible movie, but it's also one of my favorite movies because it's so enjoyably done.
Another one, Suicide Squad, is one that a lot of people hate my opinion on. I really enjoyed it. I acknowledge that it's not a very good movie.
Okay. Hey, it's like I was so close to like liking Suicide Squad, but if I like watch Dan Olson's video essay related, it's like, oh, Dan Olson's right about all these problems. I didn't notice that like the music, the song choices, it's just like we haven't like set up a subtext for the scene or something like that. So let's just use this popular contemporary song for subtext in the scene, and that did take me out of the experience of watching Suicide Squad.
Well, I haven't really seen Suicide Squad, but I have seen a few scenes with the Jared Leto Joker. And can I just say that I think that is the worst take on the Joker that I have ever seen.
Yeah. My favorite Joker is still Mark Hamill from the animated series.
Oh, he did a really good job. But
Mark Hamill is my favorite animated Joker, of course, and my favorite live action is Joaquin Phoenix.
I haven't seen the recent Joker.
I don't know. I like Heath Ledger, but I also find Joaquin Phoenix like more like relatable. Like he created a more like compelling like human character. But
So
Ledger was
I-
an antagonist.
So I was never a huge fan of Heath Ledger. I can appreciate him in that specific universe, but he wouldn't have worked in any other instance, I think.
But
I
he was in
think,
that universe, so
yeah, I think he is somewhat overrated. However, I do think he is the best part of that movie. I think Christian Bale is a pretty stale
Yeah.
Batman with
yeah.
weird throat
Where are the other
casting.
drugs?
Swear to me. So I don't like Christian Bale as Batman. He did an okay job as Bruce Wayne, but of that universe, I thought Bane was probably the best villain.
Yeah, that was
He was imposing, and he was like, I would not have had a good time in the same room with that guy. So
yeah, Tom Hardy was like really good as Bane, and like Tom Hardy's just really good at anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
Mad Max Fury Road. That's the
About that
movie.
weird voice, though.
I
He
didn't
did.
I didn't like Talia al Ghul. I thought she was dumb.
Mm.
But yeah, that's neither here nor there. I like how this started out as me asking about,
Vosh, yeah,
what's
and
left
then
And then it's like degenerated into what is your thoughts on pop culture? And
well, remember, Rat brought up the identity politics sort of thing, and that's where we got into like media representation,
Yeah.
and then it was just like, well,
Yeah.
and it moved on from there.
of
And I
course,
think it's good for conversations to have kind of a life of their own instead of just being like kind of stale and they just have to stick on topic all the time. I kind of like the flow every now and then. you know?
Yeah. So my Rat's housemate is saying that he think you geek would like the new Joker movie because it's very much a class struggle kind of movie.
people have already mentioned that, but it's like, I haven't seen it myself, but I have heard like good things about it from like people who I've respected. So I definitely will give it a chance. I'm not gonna like say it's like, oh no, I'm never gonna watch it because the director. Now I can say the director has like bad takes for certainly.
I didn't like
Yeah, but the movie in and of itself was
but
I loved it, but
Okay.
I saw who was it? I think it was the Young Turks that did like a review of it. And they had
I've never seen no Young Turks.
No, they're not good. Cenk Uygur is actually running for Congress now, so
really,
Not surprised. No. Cenk Uygur would be the kind of guy that if he's somehow become a billionaire, he would just put on a suit for him. He's a billionaire now, and he'd totally be the same kind of billionaire, but try to be the good kind of billionaire and donate a amount of money to charity so that, I'm a good billionaire. You can keep me around, leftists.
So you
Please
think
don't
maybe,
decap me.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like that. Or George Soros as well. Yeah, that's the examples.
Okay, but Soros is actually woke, though. You can't speak against Soros on my stream.
I'm not going to say anything negatively against George Soros.
Lapis, are you funded by George Soros by any chance? Is that why you don't take any monetization money?
You can't speak anything bad about Soros on the stream, and Soros is actually really woke, you guys. He's really woke on open borders.
Okay. I can appreciate someone being open borders.
Here's the thing about George Soros, though. I'm still in favor of eating the rich, so he doesn't get a pass.
But he's woke.
But the thing is, like,
by the time the revolution is done, so you won't be able to eat him.
Right. The thing is, like, if the billionaires or the property owners or like landlords are willing to give up their property after the revolution's going, oh, okay, good. I don't want to be a landlord ever again. I hated being a landlord, so there you go. Okay, yes. Then those are the landlords that I would not kill.
Hey, if they liked being a landlord and they were willing to give it up, I would be fine with it.
If landlords are basically like parasites, they're terrible.
Yeah, but if like a landlord would be like, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed being a landlord, but I understand that that's not the order going forward. Then you know what? Hey, as long as you're for the right positions on the policies, you're good.
You'll be spared.
You'll be spared. Yes.
Yeah, liberals get the bullet too in Minecraft.
Oh man, it's like I used to say, no, that's not true. Liberals will not get a bullet, but it's like, and I still kind of stand by that, or they won't get a bullet in Minecraft. But then again, the liberals hate me when I posted a "kill all landlords" meme. I can tell the
Then
story
you have
about
to look
that.
at like someone like Nancy Pelosi, who's like, I don't hate Trump because I don't hate anybody. How dare you ask me that question?
We are all capitalists, and she said that to me. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm a fucking communist.
Yeah,
Nancy
this woman
Pelosi is like the queen of being horrible. I hate that person.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi is like Hillary Clinton if she still had any power.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do think Hillary Clinton still has power within the DNC, though.
I think she has influence. It's
Yes.
different. But Nancy
Social
Pelosi
capital.
has actual power. You know, she has so much power. She holds the gravel. Unfortunately.
Yes.
I mean, it's better than having a Republican, but at the same time, can we please pick someone better next time? Everyone who was challenging her last time was challenging her from the right, which is so embarrassing. How come no one from the left challenged her?
When you say that it's still better than having a Republican, the thing is, people like Nancy Pelosi and Tom Perez and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Barack Obama is what led to Trump.
In the first,
yeah. And so I'm like, I don't know if it's better that half of the left is falling asleep.
I fall asleep during the Obama years, honestly.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't a leftist until like 2 years ago or last year.
Like that's my point. Like, and Jimmy Dore is making that point every now and then. I'm not sure what your take is on that guy, but
oh boy, I have some thoughts, but I don't want to.
Okay,
but I'll just share this. I'll just share this about Jim Dore.
But I really do not like him.
Okay,
yeah, that's what I've heard, but I have no personal opinions on him.
Okay, so my point, so the point he is usually making is that you elect a corporate Democrat, and then they put half of the left to sleep, and that is a problem that's leading to people like Donald Trump in the White House. Now, I am interested to why Lapis don't like him. I enjoy a lot of his content. I do think he has had a couple of bad takes on some things. Like,
okay. The take he made was like awful. Like, okay, it's probably like one of the few times where I'm like, okay, maybe this take is so bad that this is alone enough for me to cancel you a bit. Where he was like, the people in Charlottesville and the people who were protesting against the protesters at Charlottesville, the Nazis at Charlottesville, their problem was that they had a narcissism of minor differences.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but if that's...
I'll send you the clip. Like, it was so bad. Like, it made me in pain.
Okay. Yeah, send me the clip. I'm interested to see it. So here's the thing. Jimmy Dore is very good at attacking the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment. And I think he is really in his element when he does that. He is... I was watching one of his streams that he did, and he was giving a take that I couldn't agree with on the whole bathroom thing.
Oh no!
Yeah, because he was mentioning that he don't want grown men going into. Yeah,
that's enough for me.
Women's bathrooms.
Yeah, with like little
then
girls.
Don't make trans men go into women's bathrooms.
I know, and that was like, I'm like, hey, nobody wants men to go into the women's bathroom. That I agree with that. The thing is, trans women are women.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Wow, that is so shitty.
Yeah, but again,
that's enough for me to not listen to Jimmy Dore, honestly, unless he changes that position and really changes.
But here's the thing: that might just be something that he didn't think through. He is very open about himself being, dumb. So I think he may just not have given it some thought. He may just have been like, yeah, I'm thinking of a man going into a bathroom, and he just didn't follow up with, but trans women are women.
I mean, like, theoretically, but I mean, if he's a political commentator, like, he should recognize the language, right?
Yeah,
You should recognize the dog whistles and the language that the right uses in avoiding.
yeah, but he seems kind of. What
Is he
can
so
I say?
friendly? Is Jimmy Dore so friendly with like Joe Rogan?
Oh, I don't really care about like is he
Yeah.
friendly with the bad people? I care more about like what are his positions. If his positions are bad,
I think Joe Rogan is
are pretty bad.
Joe Rogan is an interesting person to me, though.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan is interesting to me because he is a very good person when he has a good person on the show, and he is a very bad person when he had like Ben Shapiro on the show. So
or Gavin McInnes.
So he is like the what can I say, the ultra centrist that just agrees with everyone he has on the show.
So kind of like Dave Rubin but a bit more of a backbone, because I remember him challenging Dave Rubin on one. And that was actually
he also challenged.
You should have any regulations on building.
He also challenged what's her name, Candace Owens, on her incredibly stupid take on the climate thing. I think it was Candace Owens.
Yeah.
So she was like trying to be like, yeah, I don't believe in climate change because I haven't seen the evidence and stuff like that. And then he was like, there's like a lot of evidence. And then he was starting to cite off a study, and she was like, yeah, but is that like .gov or .com? Because if it's or .net or .com, because if it's .com, then they're making money off of it. And it's like, it's a study. It's like it's just the numbers. Yeah.
What?
Okay, so but Candace Owens, if it's wrong for someone to make money off of something, then you're for communism where there's no money.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, not even that. Candace Owens is wrong in her own definition because she constantly makes money off of her opinions.
Yeah. No, and also
her job. Her job
also,
is right-wing propaganda with little to no thought, really aggressively.
But yeah, Joe Rogan also challenged Peterson on the whole forced monogamy thing. So every once in a while, he actually does like challenge the people he has on, and that's always a good thing. But he is usually very much a wet blanket to the person he has brought on.
Yeah, I think that's why the Surfs made that video essay they did of how Joe Rogan is a pipeline, not to like the alt-right, not that Joe Rogan himself is the alt-right, but he's been used as a pipeline because like of all the people that he's have on and stuff like that. Even though, yes, I've been told that
person to agree with these sorts of people without really thinking about it. It's useful. That makes your position seem more moderate in turn, when it's actually quite radical and wrong.
Yeah, but I watched some of his podcasts or listened to some of them. Like when he had Snowden on, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I've been told to listen to that one.
Yeah, he has had Kyle Kalinske on a couple times. Those are usually quite good.
Kyle Kalinske is not that bad in my book. He seemed to be just like a Demsdog, and he has like some bad takes on like identity policies, but he's not the worst. He's definitely. I'm not gonna like say cancel Kyle Kalinske. I'm just not a fan. So
yeah, I would say that Kyle is generally very much a force for good. I think that he. I think he is somewhat pragmatist in some of his views that are like, for example, if you're talking about abolishing borders, stuff like that, he is like, yeah, you can be in favor of that, but the majority of the American people isn't in favor of that, and that's not going to win you enough.
I don't think that's really going to change. I mean, I think there's a difference between open borders and abolishing borders. I'm for open borders, abolishing borders eventually when we abolish states.
Yeah, I can agree with that position. I'm the anarchist, so like no dishes, no borders, no fucking wolf borders. So how to get there is definitely up to a debate.
I live in Europe where the borders are open already, so I don't see a problem with that. Now, if here's the thing, step one to opening up the borders of the United States would be to end the drug war. You cannot.
Yes.
Yeah, you cannot have open borders until you have ended the drug war, because that would be a disaster.
There's also a lot of benefits to that as well. Just like hopefully it doesn't turn to what's kind of is right now, where like rich white businessmen are able to like take up all those markets and then profit off of like weed versus something that like black people went to jail for.
But you guys have like crazy like closed borders. Like I remember when I was in the United States, I had to show my passport in between states, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like if you are from Indiana and you want to go to California, you have to show your passport. That's fucking weird to me.
Yeah, I think they are changing those rules now as well. So it's that like even for Americans like leaving the borders, we have to have our passports or at least like enhanced ID, as it were, like new form of ID. And it's like otherwise we have to like carry around our like birth certificates or something.
Yeah,
like that.
because in Canada you don't have to show your passport at the provincial borders. You just go right on through.
Yeah. Here you don't have
like
to
there's not even like a check-in or anything. It's just part of the road. You know, you're entering Quebec. That's what it is.
Norway is bordering to one country where we have to show our passport, and that's Russia. Except for that, if you're going to Sweden or if you're going to Finland, they don't care.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the whole abolishing borders, abolishing states, it's to me that's so far down the line that I'm not thinking about it.
That's fair.
So I don't base my policies on that. Now, I think people can make a good. Yeah, I think people can make good arguments in favor of it, and that's fine. I can agree with it or disagree with it. I haven't really gotten too much into that debate, so I don't have a stance on it, basically.
So it's kind of like right now, focus on like ending capitalism or like improving the situation of the most marginalized right now, including disabled people, which like unfortunately on the left, a lot of people, not just like the people I disagree with, but a lot of people seem to forget about like disabled people a lot. I mean, that's one of the like big things that like my friend Little Ono, who I co-host Social Justice Alchemy every Saturday at 6 p.m. UTC on YouTube on Social Justice Alchemy channel. There's my plug. Is Pierre Coffin, when he made that 50-minute like overpopulation eugenicist video, failed to mention disabled people, and in Little Arnold's opinion, is like disabled people is still one of the groups where you can make fun of them, you can use slur, you can just forget about them and their issues, and
it depends on what circle you're traveling in. I mean, really, no circle should forget about the disabled and their concerns. I mean, I agree that they don't get enough attention. Yeah. I feel the same way about groups like the non-binary, sex workers, undocumented immigrants. You know, all of these people, I find, even in left discourse, get marginalized.
True. Yeah. That is important.
So I just looked at the chat because I haven't done that in a while, and I see that my housemate is saying said a while ago that he doesn't like Jimmy Dore either, and I won't shut up about him. Here's the thing: I haven't talked about him in so fucking long, and my housemate is a fucking liar. He's a bad faith actor, and we should cancel him.
I don't know. I think your housemate, he seems woke.
Here's the thing: I get criticized for like canceling people, but yet who have we actually canceled? Because like most of them still have platforms. So
actually, there was one good person who got canceled. Not a good person, but there was one good time canceled someone actually. Dr. Bones, like actually.
Right. That's a good point.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
He's basically done.
We canceled Spencer.
Yeah, like Richard Spencer is like good Nazi shtick is over. Like he's completely been exposed, ironically, in part by Milo, but also
those fucking octoroons.
I think like people need to credit like anti-fascist activism more for ruining the careers of Spencer and Milo. They really made it impossible for them to go to these college spaces and preach hate, safely. Which, or even for their audience, for people to want to show up to their shindig, which meant that their audience was like 8 people when they showed up at all. So.
I'm so happy that Richard Spencer is completely irrelevant now. If anyone has the opportunity, I would plug the documentary White Right Meeting the Enemy. It's a Norwegian filmmaker that is basically going to America and talking to a lot of Nazis. And some of these people you feel bad for because they are working class people that has been left behind by a system, and then suddenly Nazi grifters have come, picked them up, and made them into Nazis. And a lot of them are like, you know what? After they talk to this person, because she is born in Pakistan, I think.
Yeah.
So she is what they would call a mudskin, and she asks them that. She's like, so would you call me a mudskin? And they're like, no, not you. You are pretty nice. And
You're one
like,
of the good ones.
yeah, and some of them, like one of them, are like calling her at the end of the thing, and he's like, yes, like months after she met him, and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I've quit the Nazi group that I'm with, mainly thanks to you, stuff like that. And then she meets with Richard Spencer, and he is a completely different breed because he is not xenophobic. He believes that he is superior. That there's a difference between the two, because he's not afraid of people that are of different cultures. He literally believes that he is superior to these people.
Yeah, and you can tell that, like, both from that clip that Milo shared and from, like, you know, his constant media presence. Richard Spencer's the main motivator behind his ideology isn't sort of any sort of existential dread or fear. It's elitism. It's his feeling of superiority. You know?
He's born into a rich family, and he believes that he should rule the world.
Yeah, or that people like him should rule the world.
So there's a difference there, because the people that are xenophobic because they have been like treated like shit by a capitalist system that didn't care for them, you can actually reach those people, and you can actually make them see the error of the what they're doing. And she is also interviewing one guy that was prominent in like Nazi circles that quit it years ago, and he is talking about like, yeah, it was usually just the fact that we walked around and we were afraid, and that fear is something that the higher ups in these movements, they are preying upon that.
I still agree with like Inio Studios, with who I don't agree with like all of his takes on like Twitter or stuff like that, but his videos still are pretty good. Like his video on how to like radicalize Gabe or how to de-radicalize Gabe. I agree with like what he has said at the very beginning of like, do not make de-radicalizing Gabe your whole praxis. And it's like, not that I'm saying that like this woman that was doing the documentary film, that's her whole practice, just like one of the things she is doing. And so I think like, and that was like very important to me because I have a younger brother that still listens to Carl Ghana Betts, and he's still like transmitting this because hell, and which is why I like barely came out to him as a non-binary until he happened to find one of my tweets that went viral, and then saw, oh my god, no one, this is like some renegade, he's my brother. And I'm not gonna like try. I have talked to him a couple of times. I have email discussions with him because he's my brother. I know my older brother, who's also leftist, also has like discussions with him as well. But I'm not going. I think like those people who are fall into the alt-right as well because of economic anxiety, as it were, is I think they have to like come out on their own and have to de-radicalize themselves, kind of like what Faraday Speaks has done. And then how do we do with that with these people? The best, as in excuse me, in the best scenario, in like Inio Studios had thrown out, in a perfect world, we have a buffering period, whereas like those people, almost purgatory, where those people can just like sit there, be able to converse with other people, but we also shield them from the marginalized that they used to like thought of as inferior or something like that. That way, it's not like open doors to like welcome all the like ex-fascists, as it were, because there still is that problem. And that I have comrades that still express like, can we just like not like make this kind of any of this like bigotry or those comments and like be accepted in these spaces? Let's call it out what it is, and then so that they won't sit there and stew in it, because we have to be vigilant of that in leftist spaces as well. And so yeah, and also it's like, while the fascists are still fascists, even if they may have fallen into it because of economic anxiety, I'm still not going to feel sorry for them until they come out of it, until they like renounce or disavow or disown their previous beliefs, as it were. I personally am not gonna like pity them for now, as long as they still like will march with the other Nazis at a pride parade or something like that. Even if like even though I could see myself as one of them, I would still want to at least their actions be demonized.
So here's my thoughts. I'm not sure I necessarily cared for the metaphor of purgatory to heaven being leftist spaces.
There's that.
On one hand, I don't think necessarily that leftist spaces are heaven and free of bigotry. And on the other hand, I don't really kind of like that appeal to Christian morality. It seems unhealthy. But I don't mean to like drag you or anything. I just, my thoughts on that. But I do agree that, there does need to be a bit of a transition period, because we saw that oftentimes if there isn't, you can have a relapse. Like with that Comrade Oakes character who became an anarchist for like 5 months and then went back to being a fascist. He gained a ton of clout really quickly because of his "I used to be a fascist" stick. But then he made like atrocious takes like, like wage slavery. No, slavery is better than wage slavery, which I hated that take. Yeah. And then there was the other one where it's like, no, schools are like prison, guys. We need to abolish all schools. Like, I understand like reforming schools, and I understand the elements of the total institution that make the current school system unhealthy. But straight up, like, public school teachers are the same thing as jailers. Like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a 12-year-old take, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like, there does need to be some sort of period in between, being a fascist and some period where, you do have to do a bit more re-examination. Okay, why was I a fascist in the first place? And furthermore, how can I prevent myself from turning that way again? And there needs to be a space for accommodating that kind of in between, so that they don't become a danger again, right? There needs to be, because unlearning is a constant process, right? It isn't just, there will be no time when you enter heaven and become perfectly woke. You'll always have to be unlearning throughout your life. There's always going to be, bad things that you're going to think. And there's going to be bad things that you are taught by society that you're going to have to re-examine, because we live in a world where the overwhelming cultural hegemony is terrible.
Yeah.
People thinking terrible things and trying to make other people think those things too.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with a lot of what you just said, Lapis. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But no, I was grateful that you for the points you made too, which is why I invited you on the stream in the first place, Geek. I don't want the people who are criticizing me from my associations to think that I'm not hearing them, and I don't want to take their critiques on board. It's just, I don't know. I feel a bit rudderless, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for in order to sort of address that kind of thing, like I have mentioned earlier in this stream, if someone were to check out some of my content post seeing this, it's not a debate, it's just a conversation. There you go. If someone were to check out my content, they might actually be very judgmental onto you guys for even talking to me, because I have some really cringy takes. Like they are not based at all. But like I've been saying, I am going to make an upload where I talk a little bit about some of my earlier videos.
And will you take down some of those earlier videos as well?
I have already taken down some of them.
Okay.
The other ones, I am going to leave them up because I do think it is important for me to stay honest about who I am and who I've been. And also, like, if my bad takes that are still up get like massively downvoted, I would be okay with that. Yeah. So it's yeah.
And as John Bracken said in the chat, you like a prequel movie, you do have a cringe take.
Did you like the Phantom Menace? And I bet, do you not like the Return of the Sith as well?
That was Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. What am I thinking? Return of the Sith. I think it's like Return of the Jedi, but I mixed it with Revenge of the Sith. And so
Return of the Jedi was supposed to be like Revenge of the Jedi, but then George Lucas was like, no, the Jedi not want revenge.
Yes. So, Revenge of the Sith, it's decent.
I haven't rewatched any of the prequel trilogies. Then again, also I only saw Last Jedi twice, but still really loved it. And I only seen Force Awakens once, and I want to revisit that because I really enjoyed it in the theater, but then was kind of critical of it being the New Hope 2.0 as a fan remake. But I want to like watch it again through other eyes, especially since like I honestly don't care too deeply about like lore in Star Wars. I want a good story. But yeah, that's me. But you were also saying, Rad, about like how like people will cancel us for our association with you when you have like made bad takes. Well, I think actually again to present someone else who I thought, to be fair, I didn't see this person's like previously bad takes before, but Theron Meyer said that she'd had bad takes before with like non-binary people. Then she did an apology video and then also deleted those like those critical non-binary videos. And I felt that she was genuine in her apology to non-binary people. And so that's where it's like, okay, I was never personally hurt by Theron Meyer, so that's another thing, which is also why with like Dusty Smith, I never saw much of Dusty Smith's bad takes before when he was a person that Dusty Smith himself says he regretted. So that's another thing, because sometimes people are not personally hurt by someone, and so it's easier for them to forgive someone, while people who have been hurt by that person, it will take a lot for them to forgive someone if they decide to. But I think with Theron Meyer, she also happened to delete her whole channel for another reason, but I think Theron Meyer serves as a good example of someone to have redemption and then be forgiven. But there's also a case where it's like not everyone will be willing to forgive, period.
Yeah, and I don't think that we can demand that everyone forgive, and I don't think that we should, and I certainly don't. But at a certain point, like if no one is willing to forgive, then I don't really see the point in changing the action, because there's no reduction in harm, right? Because I don't know, I change my actions based on the sort of feedback I get. And if the feedback I get is you can reduce harm by doing this thing for me, then I generally try to do it. Not all the time. I'm not a perfect person, and I try to, reassess it when I do have these issues. But generally, if someone tells me, here's some harm that I'm feeling, then I make an adjustment. But the feedback I've gotten from this has been nothing you do will ever be good enough. You shouldn't have done this in the first place, which I can't do anything with. And it's one thing to, to be that person who says, who's been hurt so deeply that they can't forgive. It's one thing to be that person. It's another to have hurt someone like that deeply, unintentionally, and then not really have any sort of pathway to make a change in the future.
Yeah. And that's sort of why I'm keeping some of the videos up. mainly because it's like, hey, these are positions I held, and I have to be honest about that. Now, now those videos usually have very few views, and that's good for me. But what I feel like is that if I were to remove everything bad I've ever said, then that could also be used as an argument against my presence, being like, hey, he's just trying to cover his tracks. And I'll keep some of it up, and if people ask me about it, well, then I'll just tell them that those are views that I held. I don't hold them anymore. I changed them fairly, I'm fairly consistent in my views, but some of them I do change because I get arguments that are good enough, which is the reason I changed my views from being a social democrat to now being a syndicalist. Which is interesting because I have offered, I've talked a little bit to Vosh actually about that. Whereas I mentioned to him that I could maybe come on one of his streams and talk about social democracy versus socialism. I know that was the first. I think the first stream I did with Lapis was yeah, and so now I'm ideologically a syndicalist or something to that effect. However, would it be pragmatically more sound to do social democracy for the time being?
Well, I mean, I think we should support the most left-wing options we can get, right? Support social democrats if they're the most left-wing option available. Support socialists if they're the most left-wing.
Yeah. So my point with that is basically like, if you look at Norway, which is a thriving social democracy, we're doing generally quite good, even though we have our issues. So in that case, would it then make sense to sort of try to kick the legs under the entire social structure, or should we try to build on the social democracy we already have? Now, ideally, in like a what's it called? In an ideal world, then yeah, I would go for a more syndicate-like society, syndicalized society. But if that isn't possible either way, would it then just be better to try to build upon the social democracy?
I guess for me, just like I guess the reason why I'm an anarchist and a revolutionist is because I'm very optimistic. I believe those things are possible. So if I give up and think that it's not possible, then I guess you just go to the next best good that you can do and build up on social democracy. Like ensure more people are given the necessities of life as much as possible. Build up more on what you can do within the system, which is like, I still vote because it does some reduction. And I have written to my congressman as well with a Redditor pretty much was a rant about my whole issue of like my disabled comrades being able to have to beg online for stuff. And that got me a call from one of the people that worked for my congressman, Adam Smith. And interesting that currently the office of Adam Smith also communicates with the office of the Illinois more, so at least that's a good thing. My congressman is part of the progressive caucus of the Congress in America. But then again, like many anarchists are like thinks that like the progressive caucus is like almost a joke because like no one in Congress takes them seriously. So
Could I ask a technical question?
Sure.
This has nothing to do with like policies or anything, but so you guys had the Senate, which is where Bernie Sanders and
Warren
and stuff that people like that are. And then you have the House of Representatives. Where Tulsi Gabbard is, for example.
And AOC in the squad.
So Congress, what are
both?
That's both.
Yes, essentially both.
So both Bernie Sanders and AOC are Congress people.
Yeah, it's kind of strange how like we call congressmen or congresswomen the people who are in the House of Representatives and senators are in the Senate. Yet, yes, the Senate and the House of Representatives are both Congress,
Okay.
as it were.
Because that's what I always thought, but then people, like you said, were referring to only people from the House as congressman or congresswoman.
Yeah, that's the term we have.
All right.
It's a bit confusing because technically, senators and people in the House of Representatives are in Congress, but the House of Representatives are the only ones that get called congressman/woman/person, and the senators just get called senator.
You can technically also call them like representatives as well, but like colloquially, people just sort of refer to Congress people. Yeah.
So, what is the sort of difference in power of the two?
Okay,
like, is it more local versus more federal, or is it like?
Well, the thing is, like for the there are more representatives. Period. It's all like proportional. And it gets reevaluated ever so often. And the representatives are up for re-election every 2 years, no matter what. Well, it's like the Senate, they have 6 years terms, and it's like 2 per state period. And thus,
but you also have like state houses. Is that different?
I think they kind of like run similarly on a similar structure. Where yes, they also like they have the state Congress where they have their own House of Representatives, and then they have a Senate and some of the similar lines. But also, here's the thing: so like each state can change those rules about those things as well, and so that's how I can have multiple representatives in my district of like Washington State, but I still only have one senator that represents a larger swath of like the district, as it were. And this is also the problem of like talking to an American, as we don't know how our own government like it works that much. And I'm a more politically conscious person in America as an anarchist, while most people are just like, yeah, I don't talk politics because they can afford to.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's just that I think your system is a bit of a mess. but yeah, again, parliamentarism is easy. No, parliamentarism has definite problems as well. But that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that this might be a good point to cut the stream off, since we've been going for 3 hours and 15 minutes. And Pat has to sleep at some point because
yes.
It's only 3:36 here.
Only.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been great having you two on. I originally only planned to have one, but I was very glad to have some random geek as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you all some other time. Ta-ta for now.
Bye.